Like with the, how he waits for the seconds? I got 6 o'clock. Is it? Okay. Ready? You got this. Okay. All right. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Apex Town Council meeting on August 24th, 2021. I'm going to go ahead and also thank folks who are joining us via live stream. You've got a packed house tonight and a lot of excitement going on, so ready to jump right into that. So after I now call on the meeting to order, I want to do something a little bit different so we don't miss Mayor Gilbert too much, that we could go into instead of the time of invocation, if you would like to do that. But I also thought it would be nice to just have a moment of silence, and I will ask my council member colleagues to share something about what they might be thinking of during this time, the tough time that we're having in the country right now. So whoever would like to start.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I suppose at this moment I'm thinking about my family and their continued health. I'm thinking about our teachers, administrators, bus drivers who are working really hard this week for a successful return to in-person instruction. It's pretty tough out there right now, but they're working their best, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
My biggest thoughts during this time and have been on the effect of COVID-19 on our community, from our teachers and our staff and students to children who are not yet eligible for the vaccine. The safety of our staff, our first responders, police and firefighters, administrative and public works, our volunteers who give their time to try to provide some normalcy for kids who participate in the programs, our nonprofits in the community who provide services and support for those in need during this time. It definitely weighs heavy in so many different ways.
Thank you so much. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I'll go. I've been thinking a lot about the string of natural disasters that this country has had with the hurricane recently and the flooding near my hometown of Asheville and in Tennessee. And I think municipalities like Apex try to be prepared as best we can to be resilient to these kind of events. But I think it's impossible to be totally prepared. So I'm just thinking about those victims.
You all covered so much. I would echo what my colleagues said, and just grateful for our community, and just ask that we continue to stick together and be good neighbors to each other and be community to one another, because that's what it's going to take to get through this pandemic together. I'm grateful that the vaccines are getting fully authorized, and I hope that the continued research will happen quicker so our younger kids can get vaccinated as well.
Thank you so much. And I don't want to belabor this, but I just would share all the sentiments that you have said. And because I work on healthcare all the time, I don't ever get away from just thinking about what COVID-19 has done. And so the virus is the enemy, but I think we have done such a good job in trying to support each other around, and something that's just nothing that we've ever seen before. But like you said, it's a natural disaster and we're in a crisis. So thank you for your thoughts. And so if y'all would join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. If you were able to stand, we'd love for you to join us for a Pledge of Allegiance, and those at home should see the flag also. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. You're ready to move right on into our first presentation. Fire Chief Keith Mcgee, presenting the Medal of Honor to Captain Christopher Scott Pearson. We'll hear for Chief Mcgee, and then also we'll hear for Captain Pearson.
All right. Good evening, Council, Mayor Pro Tem. This is one of those great opportunities that we get a chance to brag on one of our awesome firefighters. Even though this activity, this event that occurred, he was off duty. And I'm going to go through and kind of relay the story real quick so everybody in the audience can understand, what occurred and why we're standing here tonight. So on Thursday, May 20th, 2021, at 11:19 a.m., the Cary Emergency Communications Center began receiving 911 calls in reference to a structure fire at 1118 Blackburn Road. Sorry. So to give you an idea of where 1118 Blackburn Road is, we're familiar with the Haddon Hall subdivision, but it's the road that cuts up between Peak Charter Academy and Duke Primary Care and back into the Haddon Hall subdivision. And right here where the red circle is that was 1118. So one of the callers, Martha Whitten, stated that her house was on fire and her husband Frank were inside, and the Whittens are sitting right here on the front row, so I want to make sure we acknowledge them. The telecommunicator, Barbara Clements, received the call and spoke with Mrs. Whitten while maintaining the highest degree of professionalism during the crisis, as she heard smoke alarms in the background. She heard Mrs. Whitten coughing and choking on the thick black smoke that was being produced by the rapidly growing fire. Telecommunicator Clements maintained a calm but firm demeanor as she kept coaching Miss Whitten to get out of the home, but she was having to talk over Miss Whitten because she was yelling at her husband, "Buddy, get out, buddy, get out." So the urgency of the situation was evident to all the telecommunicators in the center that day, and they worked to obtain information from numerous callers while working to relay as much information to first responders about the emergency. Telecommunicators Karen Smith, Barbara Clements, James Allen, Lisa Rue, and Sean Wells received 19 emergency 911 calls in 6 minutes. During this time, they also dispatched multiple units, including Apex and Cary Fire Departments, Apex Police Department, Wake County EMS, and the Town of Apex Electric Utilities to the fire. As the fire was being dispatched, Town of Apex Fire Captain Scott Pearson, who was sitting in the front row here, who was off duty and traveling west on US 64, observed a rapidly developing column of smoke. And we'll kind of give you an idea. If you can see these pictures, this would be at crossing over the railroad tracks going 64 westbound before you get past the Salem Street exit, but before you cross over Salem Street. So this was the first picture. So imagine traveling 55 miles an hour. Now look at the growth of the fire. So he's almost to North Salem Street. And then as he approaches Blackburn. Wow. Gives you an idea how why we talk about fast response times. So Captain Pearson broke away from his intended route to investigate the cause of the smoke to see if he could be of assistance. When he arrived on scene, he discovered that Mr. and Mrs. Whitten were still trapped in the home. Neighbors of the Whittens were doing what they could to effect a rescue. Mr. Rob Baber, sitting right here in the green shirt, he's a neighbor to the rear of their home. He had broken out a window on the north side of the home near the garage, knowing there was someone still inside. And there's the picture of the window. If we just noticed the one that's busted out there. And so another neighbor had entered the garage to try to perform a rescue, but the heat and smoke conditions were too great, but not before saving the Whitten's dog. Both Captain Pearson and Mr. Baber heard Mrs. Whitten inside. They called out to her to try to get her to come to the window. But by this point, Mrs. Whitten and her husband had become separated, and both were being severely affected by the toxic smoke. Mrs. Whitten could not make it out on her own due to the heavy smoke conditions. Mr. Whitten made it to the doorway between the house and the garage by relying on his fire control team training he learned while in the U.S. Navy. He remembered that the cooler and clean air would be closer to the floor, so he began to crawl, and he was shouting to his wife to do the same. Due to them being separated from each other by the rapidly deteriorating conditions, Mr. Whitten began to go back inside to find his wife. In the mere seconds in which all of this transpired, Captain Pearson looked for another way to enter the home. He risked his own safety by entering the home without protective equipment through the window previously broken by Mr. Baber. I believe he was wearing shorts, a t-shirt, and some Crocs, and a hat. Don't forget the hat. So as Captain Pearson entered the home, when the toxic smoke began affecting his breathing and caused his eyes to burn, his concern grew because he could no longer hear anyone. As he crouched down to get below the smoke, he determined he could see someone's legs. It turned out to be Mrs. Whitten. And he grabbed her and carried her to safety where neighbors and Apex police officers' sites helped her out the window. Captain Pearson badly lacerated his arm on some broken glass that was still held fast in the window frame when he passed her out to safety. So the conditions continued to rapidly deteriorate. So this was after they had already gotten Mrs. Whitten out. But if you'll notice the timestamps on the cell phone pictures here at 11:28 and 11:29, if you just look at the growth rate that was in that fire. And so just moments before, Captain Pearson was in there getting Miss Whitten out. So as the conditions continued to rapidly deteriorate, Captain Pearson exited out the window. Didn't worry about his own injury, of course. He knew Mr. Whitten was still in the home and was calling out for him. Fortunately, the rapid response of our Rescue 33 crew, who were the first responders on duty that arrived on scene, Captain Kevin Butts and Lieutenant Kevin Smith made entry through that same window to go in because at that time we were still looking for Mr. Whitten. Almost instantaneously, they recognized that Mr. Whitten was in the garage, and crews were able to go in and get him out of the garage and bring him to safety. So ultimately, it was a truly successful event. And obviously the devastation to the house is a tragedy for the family, without a doubt. But we're just so glad that the Whittens are here with us tonight. We're glad to be able to recognize Captain Pearson for what he did. And I think the most important thing here is to tell you that I don't think that Captain Pearson is really the kind of person that was looking for accolades, because he quickly vanished from the scene, went to Fast Med, got some stitches, and then went to the beach to go fishing. So with that being said, there's a couple things that we want to recognize Captain Pearson. So if you want to, so this is the minor thing. So this is the Chief's Challenge Coin for Service Excellence. And so I'm going to present this to you tonight for that. That's the minor one. We won't even spend any time.
I'm trying to get a photo.
Oh.
You're going too fast.
Yeah, we'll get a photo of the Medal of Honor. And then you can tell I do these a lot.
Yeah.
So here, unfortunately, the fire department was not prepared to present a Medal of Honor because we didn't even have a Medal of Honor. But after this happened, we determined it was appropriate to get a Medal of Honor. So that's why the event happened in May, and we're just here in August, and that's because we had these medals actually made. So this, and we can take it up and show you on the end, but this is the Medal of Honor for Captain Pearson to go along with a certificate that just says, in recognition of outstanding act of bravery, with no regard to self or personal safety, with great individual courage, and with dedication devoted to duty. So for what you did, you're our first recipient of a Medal of Honor. Thank you. Your family.
Thank you, Chief Mcgee. Captain, if you would like to have your family join you, we'd love to have some words from you.
Yes.
Sure. Can you can?
And the purple shirt right back there.
Yes.
Eldridge.
Okay.
He's the guy that ran up the driveway, looked under the garage door, which was open a little bit still, and reached and grabbed me and put me on his shoulder and literally carried me across the street to the neighbor's yard.
Well, I apologize. We missed that in the investigation.
Well, would you stand? Thank you so much, Mr. Whitten.
I carried me and my pants. And I put them on in the neighbor's yard.
Thank you so much for this. This is a great honor. Y'all do know I get paid for this kind of thing, right? This is something I get paid for. I would like to deflect some of this attention towards the Whittens right now. They are, I think, the true heroes in all this. Mr. Whitten went back in this raging inferno to find his wife, and then Miss Whitten did her very best, so brave to come to my voice. So seeing you guys together is just so inspirational. And I think, again, they deserve the heroes' applause. A couple quick acknowledgments, and then I'll be Chief Mcgee. Thank you for doing for me and not to me. You know what it's all about. I owe Chief Maynard an apology. Chief Maynard, where are you at? So Chief Maynard was the first, aside from me, he was the first paid firefighter on scene. He didn't realize I was there. You can only imagine what he had going on as the incident commander. 2 people trapped inside this fire. And there comes a third guy running into a window, just made his life absolutely miserable. So I apologize, Chief Maynard. You did an awesome job that day. Yeah, I owed you that apology. That was super hectic to have 3 people in a fire like that. So he deserves some credit there. Chief Harrison, his pursuit of excellence in all this, he sat me down right after the event, Chief Harrison, and we talked. I gave him the story, I told him everything, and Chief Harrison immediately says, let's talk about the fire. Let's see, what could we have done better on? Tell me some things, how did it go? Because once I did what I did, I sat down and got to watch the whole thing unfold, and it was pretty impressive. So Chief Harrison's pursuit of excellence just right there, right immediately after. So thank you, Chief Harrison, for that. I want to thank C-Shift. I've never been so happy to see C-Shift show up. And I told them that, and also just a testament to the Apex Fire Department and Apex Police Department. I hope the citizens are aware of the consummate professionalism that the fire department and the police department show, and you citizens are very well protected. So I want to thank the crew, my crew that are here, and also on that note, I want to thank the town council for giving us the equipment. Budget just went through. I'm on a rescue, and thank you for giving us the equipment we need to do our jobs and protect these citizens. Thank you so much. My family and my girlfriend are here. Just wanted to thank them for their support. You know, the firefighter 24-hour schedule is pretty rough to deal with, and I thank them for dealing with it. I don't think my dad still understands my schedule after 18 years. He's always asking me, now what time did you get off? So, and then town manager and town council, again, thank you for your support, the fire department, the police department, just consummate professionals, and we really thank you for all your support there. All right. Thank you.
If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay, or else we can go outside and do some photos in just a few minutes.
It's a choice, but before you leave, I do want to thank you, Chief Mcgee, for doing that, and thank you all for being here. And you mentioned a few people. You mentioned the telecommunicators. You mentioned, of course, the other firefighters. You mentioned the police department, and the neighbors. And so I just wanted to say that there's a lot of people here that helped make sure that you all are here today, and we're so glad that you took time to come. But I just want to say thank you to the entire Apex first responders and the community for getting involved to make sure that our Apexers are here today. So thank you so much. Thank you. All right. I guess you're heading out for some more photos.
While they leave, I will take just a second to say, a couple years ago, this council made a decision to invest in Apex Fire. The whole CAM process of us partnering more closely with Cary, Apex, and Morrisville. And so the event here was a mixture of Cary and Apex units. It was a Cary ladder, and the speed of response and all that was due to those decisions. And so you did play a huge part in this as well. So thank you for that, for the support that we've got in making those moves.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging the need. All right, well, we'll let them leave and take some more pictures. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. All right. So as they're exiting, we're going to go into our next presentation. Vance Holloman, Finance Director, presentation of an update on the town's customer assistance program.
a few minutes to exit.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. So we'll wait a few minutes, Vance, just make sure you get up here, but Tilly. Okay, thanks, bye. It's on you?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Pro Tem and members of the council. We're here tonight to give you a brief update on the progress and of our customer assistance program that was established, I believe, at the April 27th town council meeting. We're working, of course, with the Western Wake Crisis Ministry, and they provide just tremendous assistance to us, and this could not occur without them. The program actually started, I believe, taking applications in late May, and the first awards were made in June. I'll discuss the awards we've made so far through June and July.
Thank you.
Just for a bit of background, I'll run through our delinquent accounts again as of July 31, 2020, and these are the accounts that are subject to disconnection as of July 31st. Our residential, almost $1.3 million, a little over 1,900 accounts, average of $676 per account. Commercial, not a large number, slightly under 100,000, but the average, of course, is well, it's not quite double, but considerably higher than a residential. We combine the two, we're sitting at about 1.4 million, 1,985 customers, just under $700 average balance. That constitutes 1.48% of the revenues that were billed during the period of the cutoff through the current date. In other words, from the billings in April 2020 until the billings through July 2021. Just slightly less than 1.5% are currently delinquent. We look at our past due accounts, and these are the ones that are past due but not yet eligible for cutoff. We traditionally compare those to a percentage of our revenues. We see that's running from a low of just over 2% in the general fund. That would be billing for garbage, recycle, yard waste. We look at our electric fund, that is the highest percent, just under 2.5 at $1.4 million combined. It constitutes, again, 2.32% of, again, our revenues that were billed between between April 2020 and July 2021. Our applications, in June, we had 26 applications, and they were all approved. Gave $14,706 in assistance, working out to about $565 per customer. In July, we had 22 applications, 17 were approved. Those that were not approved, some were not residents of the town, and some did not meet the eligibility criteria. Again, the average amount very close, $563. And one of the things you also asked for was a breakdown of the different poverty levels that were receiving the awards. The good news is that 100% or below have been the predominant categories. Of the 26 in June, they received 15 of the awards, or 58%. In the month of July, there were 11 of the 17, almost 2/3, 65%. Also, if you look at the 140th percentile up, that's 23 of 26 in the month of June. That's 89%. And also 89%, 15 out of 17 in the month of July. I'll also let you know that we, through the first half of August, have made approximately $10,000 of awards. So it appears the program is picking up a bit, gaining momentum. Is there any questions I can answer?
Any questions for Mr. Holloman? Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm curious, so we resumed sending out the disconnect letters to people who are past due, correct?
Yes, sir. We have sent those out.
And does that letter contain information about this program?
Yes.
Okay. So everyone who's subject,
We have that information available on our website. Our staff is also, anyone who calls in with a late bill, we are telling them about it.
okay. And how many letters does someone get? I just want to make sure that everyone who's disconnected, they definitely know about this program and are able to apply for it. And we don't have people who slip through the cracks somehow. So they get the letter, they get a second letter, they get a final letter with big red letters atop saying, give us a call.
Yes, sir. We are cutting off tomorrow for the first time.
I see.
And we have approximately 100 people will be cut off tomorrow. The number is larger than that, but that pretty much is our capacity to cut off in a single month. Only 2 of those 100 have payment programs in place. I think, unfortunately, there will be folks who, until there's a cutoff, some people will, have been very active because of the disconnect letters. But I think there'll be others, until there's a cutoff, they may not reach out for a payment program, or they may not reach out to Western Wake. The program now, we said if they had made an appointment with Western Wake, but once we got into carrying out this program, what we discovered is that all the applications are being made electronically. So if they have filed an application with Western Wake, we have their name, and we will give them the opportunity for that application to be evaluated before we will cut them off.
Any other questions or follow-up, Mr. Holloman, on that?
Mr. Hallman, do you have a feel for the scale of how much of that $2 million or whatever you showed in the last slide is going to be just a write-off that we're going to have to do because they've moved or closed their account?
It is tough to know at this time. So I believe there are some in there, certainly. We had a call the other day from a person, and I hope that it turns out to be a lot like this. She had this customer had gotten a disconnect notice, and they have been making their payments. They were current except for this particular month. And what occurred was, without a disconnection process in place, they had started letting the date they pay slip a little bit, and that had caused them to fall into the disconnect category. And they came in the next day and paid once they got the disconnect letter, realized we'd be disconnecting. So I hope there's a lot of folks out there like that, and things work out well. But we know this is not going to be a simple process. It's gonna, we didn't cut off for about 18 months, and we're not going to get everybody back on board in a month or two. I mean, it's going to take time, a lot of effort, a lot of the work as far as determining status of payment plans and things of that nature are having to be done by hand, by staff. Again, the number of cutoffs is a limit, because you cut off, you've ultimately got to reconnect unless the property is vacant. So consider, we cut 100 people off, that's 100 disconnections, theoretically another 100 reconnects. So it is a lot of work. We're going to work through it though, and we are taking the largest balances and working down from there. I felt that would be the most equitable and efficient way to work through that. And we are, again, we're going to be very patient with people, try to give them opportunities for a payment plan, opportunities to apply to Western Wake, and try to work as much as we can with the customers.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so my request would be that you continue to remain connected to us about what happens. It sounds like we have steps that we're taking to hopefully not cut people off. So it sounds like we're taking these steps. So I'd like to figure out how to understand how that's going.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Holland. All right. So I'm going to remind folks at this time, if you do plan to speak in the public forum or in a public hearing, if you have not already signed up, please do so on my right. And so now it's the time to go ahead and set the consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered to be routine, to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without a discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. So with that, I have a note here that staff has asked to remove consent 12. So y'all should have that, maybe have that at your seat. And also, let's see here, that other consent item, the social media policy will be revised, and our revised copy should be at your desk. Okay, so that's all I know. Any other items consent? Okay, all right, so I'm gonna send this back to council. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes as noted.
I second it.
All right, a motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right. Now I'm gonna move into set the regular meeting agenda. At this time, I understand that the applicant for public hearing number 2 is asking for that to be continued to September 28th. And so I will, I want to note that, and then I also would like to, when we get to the time, I'd like to switch public hearing number 1 with public hearing number 2, so then they can hear that first, those who need a continuance. Does that make sense? Are you all in agreement with that? So instead of hearing public hearing number 1, which is Evans Road first, we would hear public hearing number 2, which they're asking for with continuance, and we would just vote on that. Okay.
Well,
All right.
do we have to vote on it? Don't they get an automatic one, or is that a vote?
We have to vote on it,
Okay.
though, but yeah. So just want to let you know that's coming up. I'd like to do that. All right. So if there's no other items that are added, I'm going to go ahead and say that the regular meeting is agenda has been set, and I'm going to go into public forum. So public forum allows the public an opportunity to address the town council. The speaker is requested not to address items that appear as public hearings scheduled for the regular agenda. Recognize those who would like to speak at the appropriate time. Large groups are asked to select a representative to speak for the entire group, and comments must be limited to 3 minutes to allow others the opportunity to speak. Thank you. If you are here in a large group and you do hear something that you agree with, you're welcome to do the deaf fingers in support. So yeah.
I heard this. I think we have to vote on it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. So that's all right. So we're all set for that. But now I want to go ahead and send the matter back to council and see if we agree with the setting the regular meeting agenda as is. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We have set the regular meeting agenda. Thank you so much. All right. So for this public forum, I do have a few people signed up. The first is Jamie Hackney, then Jamie Davis, Chris Raleigh, Elizabeth Perkins, and Tim. I'm not sure what the last name is, or Jim, but first up, Jamie Hackney.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor Pro Tem Dozier and members of the Apex Town Council. My name is Jamie Hackney. I am the daughter-in-law of Judy and Leon Hackney and have been happily married to their son Lee, going on 21 years. My in-laws are here tonight, and they've asked me to speak on behalf of our family. I am an Apex native that grew up here and graduated from Apex High School, as did Lee. Our family has owned this property for over 60 years, and we have seen a lot of changes in this area. Over the past 4 to 5 years, we have watched as development has occurred on every piece of land that surrounds our property. Over the years, we have been approached by many builders and developers who wanted to purchase our property. Just over a year ago, we began working with Pulte Homes because they presented us with plans that preserve the natural areas of our property while creating a nice neighborhood that fits in with the surroundings. We have worked with the people at Pulte to help them understand the history of the property and the features that make it special to us. As you know, over the past several months, our proposed neighborhood has been before you and has been deferred twice. Tonight, it is on the unfinished business agenda. We are here to ask you for support of this project. In addition to complying with all of your ordinances, we believe that Pulte has done everything that they have been asked to do, including reducing density, diversifying their home types, slowing the development timing, installing solar panels, and actually building some homes that are more affordable. It is my understanding that some of you individually asked Pulte to add these commitments to make this a better project for the town. You have been clear that your past hesitation has been because of school capacity. Over the years, we have watched all of the large developments around us be approved, and now we are being held up for a problem that we did not create and do not have the ability to solve. We appreciate the attention you have brought to the school capacity issues and efforts you have made to solve it. We are encouraged that there has been some recent progress with the schools. However, please do not punish our family for a problem that we did not create. Tonight, my parents and I ask you to acknowledge that there is a lot of good in the project. This is the result of a lot of work by my family, Pulte, the town staff, and this council. I fear that if this project is not approved tonight, we will not be able to find another team that cares enough to provide as much good as the current project does. I have like 2 more sentences. This proposal is the best long-term use of this property. If you don't approve this tonight, a future town council might and probably will approve it for expensive housing that limited people cannot afford. Please take advantage of this excellent proposal that is before you tonight and approve it. Thank you for your time.
Jamie Davis?
I was with the Hackneys when she was in.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you. All right, Chris Raleigh?
Good evening. My name's Chris Raleigh. I'm a vice president at Pulte Home Corporation, and I'm here tonight to modify one of the conditions in the Hackney PUD rezoning application. It's 20 CZ 14, which is on your agenda this evening as unfinished business item UB2. Many of you are accustomed to talking with Randy King in our office. Unfortunately, Randy's not able to be with us this evening due to a death in his family. Within the Hackney Plan Unit Development document that's dated August 18th, 2021, Section 17 is entitled Affordable Housing. The first phrase of this section reads, "The development shall include 5 affordable townhome units." Our revised condition is to change this phrase to read, "The development shall include 10 affordable townhome units." Although I'm only changing one word in the statement, that is, I'm changing a 5 to a 10, which seems like a simple change, this is actually huge. Please let me offer a little commentary, because in my 20 years of developing property, the conditions offered on this project are some of the most progressive conditions I've ever seen. I applaud the ongoing discussion regarding school capacity and the need for solutions. But I think it's also fair to say that there's an issue in that there may be a lot of hardworking people and families who cannot afford to buy a home in Apex. And that also needs a solution. So in addition to building a great neighborhood, we're committing to building 10 affordable townhomes in this neighborhood. That is 10 families that will enjoy living in this community. They'll enjoy using the pool, they'll enjoy using the amenities, they'll get to live in Apex. For perspective, most developments offer to build 0 affordable dwelling units. It may even be fair to assume that one of those 10 families is a teacher who lives in Apex, who works in Apex, who wants to live in the same community that they teach in, and this might be their opportunity to do it. So I believe this is an excellent use of this property, and I hope that you'll vote in favor of this project this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a revised condition to turn into the town attorney if that's necessary.
Thank you. All right, Elizabeth Perkins, is that Jim Baldwin?
Hello. So, in regards to the growth in Apex, and specifically off of Olive Chapel Road, it's growing like wildfire. It is all around us, and there's all kinds of housing. There's condos, there's single family, there's medium-sized homes, and then there's the larger homes like Toll Brothers is building. My concern comes from what you're going to be building. We are growing so fast, the highways are just packed, and you're putting in more condos. So I saw the plan for the condos that are right next to my property. So my view is, well, that's not even the biggest problem, but the view that what I moved out there for is it's changing like light speed, and I don't even know how we accommodate this. You get on 64 in the morning, you're going to work, and you're backed up, way back on 64 as you come up to Lauren Duncan Road. Olive Chapel Road and Kelly Road is just another nightmare. Just getting out of my driveway now is horrible. And then I look at the plans and I see where the builder has plans to cut my property and cut into my driveway. So what I don't understand is how we can't accommodate the schools, the public services, the roadways as they are now. And now we've got almost 90 acres and we're putting in condos and smaller homes. Why can't we get a builder in there that will put in bigger homes with more land and be more gracious to our environment? I mean, that's pretty much where I'm coming from. I don't know. I don't know how we can accommodate the growth, the schools, the kids, the pods. I just don't understand the need for you know, you're going from 10 condos, now you're throwing up, you're going from 5 to 10. And like the cars, where do they park? I think that it's kind of egregious the way that Apex is just growing, unbounded, no limitations. And I just think it just needs to be brought to light that you need to be kinder to our environment. We need to slow growth. We need to build our infrastructure to support the amount of people that are coming in and working in here. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Are you still speaking?
My concerns is
Come to the microphone, please. And are you Jim Baldwin?
I'm Tim.
Tim Baldwin. Okay.
My concern is where is the water going? We have a major problem on the bridge right where they're at, coming down our driveway, washing everything out. And Mr. Leo has complained for years about they're covering up creeks and bypasses on the lake back there. There's nowhere for this water to go now. So if we have a major storm, there's going to be some houses taken out. They can say what they want to, but Mother Nature will bring it back. They've covered up natural creeks. I've been in here before and questioned it, and it was shut down because they didn't want to hear that. Now I have a problem with that because they're surrounding our property, and all that water is going to come on us. And that's a big deal. I mean, he has a beautiful piece of property. I understand he's going to sell it and make some homes there. I understand that. But we built a nice dream home there, and now close as that wall, you got 10 condos going to be staring down on your property. That's not cool. Nobody in here wants that. If they build homes, that's one thing, but building a condo sticking over you, that's not it. And then as far as taking our property to put their driveway in, they have enough property to put their driveway on their property and leave us alone. Down on the road on Apex Barbecue, there's wrecks there all the time because that road is so congested and it's so sharp and curved. There's holes that are 18 inches deep where cars are running off the road. Nobody cares. How many people has to die there before they do anything about this? So when they put these in, I don't know how many homes is going in there, but every family has 2 cars. That's going to be twice as much or 3 times as much traffic going through here. When we moved out, you walk to the mailbox, no problem. Now you get run over if you're not careful. It's just, I just don't think that road supports it. And I am not willing to give up our property for somebody else to enlighten themselves because that's private gain, bottom line. It's like me coming to either one of you guys' house saying, I'm going to build something out here, but I'm taking your property so I can have a driveway for it. And that don't work that way. And this town has approved that in the past, and it's got to stop. On numerous occasions down Olive Chapel Road, that has happened. They're covering up creeks. They're covering up artesian flow water. The pond, I know if it's a man-made pond, you can cover it up. If it's not, if it's natural, you're not allowed to cover it up, but they do it. And you guys are approving this, and you're turning your heads, and that's not good. And if this goes on, I'm gonna have to bring somebody in to put a stop to it. Because that's not the way housing's supposed to be done. Because there's nobody sitting up here wants to have a nice home built, just under artesian flow, so when a storm comes up, it takes your house out. Nobody wants that. But you guys don't realize you're approving this stuff until it happens. And that's really all I got to say there.
And we don't usually speak during this, but I did write down the things you said because you're talking about someone taking your property. You did say something about bringing someone there to stop it. Can you elaborate on what that means?
Do what now?
You would bring somebody in here to allow
I
to
will bring my
stop it?
attorneys in.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to elaborate to make sure I was clear on what you
No,
meant.
I'm not threatening anybody, no.
Just wanted to be clear.
I'm not that crazy.
You're not what?
I'm not that crazy. I might look it, but I'm not. No, but it's just, you know, it's just to the point that this group of people here, in here, has the power to run over everybody for private gain. It's not for the town of Apex, it's you making money, but you're taking private property all the way down Olive Chapel Road. There's people that the town of Apex has said, you sell your property, we'll condemn it. That's against the law. And I can bring my attorney in, he can stop all that.
I don't know what that is about, but I have your information.
If you look at it, you can find it, because I know one that's not there.
Okay, all right, thank you so much for coming to speak. All right, so I'm gonna close the public forum and move into public hearings. And as I said, so we did agree to switch to public hearing number 2 to be heard before public hearing number 1. So I understand Liz Lofton is saying that the applicant would like to request a continuance from today through to September the 28th. So did you want to say anything about that before we vote about that? Or? Okay. Okay. Does anyone want to hear from the applicant, or are we ready to send the matter back to council to vote?
Motion to continue.
Second.
All right, we got a motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Just want to clarify for
Yes.
the public, the applicant's entitled to one continuance per our ordinances, so.
Yes, correct. Thank you so much, Mr. Mahaffey. All right, so now we'll move into public hearing number 1, Liz Lofton, Senior Planner. It's a public hearing and possible motion to approve rezoning application 21CZ13, Evans Road, PUD. The applicant, Jason Vickers for Beezer Homes, seeks to rezone approximately 34.57 acres from rural residential to planned unit development conditional zoning, PUD CZ. Ms. Lofton.
Good evening. This is Evans Road PUD. It is in the western portion of our jurisdiction. The properties are bound by Hume Olive Road, Evans Road, and a portion of Walden Road. The properties are currently zoned rural residential. The applicant is proposing to rezone to planned unit development conditional zoning. The 2045 land use map designates the properties as medium and medium-high density residential. The proposed PUD is consistent with the land use map designation. The site consists of 20 parcels on the north side of Hume Olive, the east side of Evans Road, and there is a portion of Walden. The site has several single-family residences, outbuildings. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on April 21st. The neighborhood meeting is included in the staff report. A full list of the approved uses is on page 2 of the staff report and includes single-family, accessory apartment, and townhouse. The applicant has added a condition that the project will be a maximum of 115 residential units and no more than 50 townhouses. A full list of the proposed setbacks can be found on page 3 of the staff report. The RCA shall meet the requirements of the UDO. The applicant is proposing a 20-foot type B buffer along the north and western boundaries. Along Hume Olive and Evans Road, they're proposing a 30-foot type B buffer. And around the cemetery, they're proposing a 10-foot type B buffer. The town of Apex will provide water, sewer, and electric service and will be designed according to the town of Apex standards and specifications.
A full list of the architectural conditions can be found on pages 3 and 4 of the staff report. The applicant has also included all buildings constructed on the property shall provide solar conduit for the installation of rooftop solar panels. The developer shall also apply for Energy Star or other energy efficient ratings for all newly constructed homes on the property. These are the townhome elevations. The existing Walden Road right-of-way shall be abandoned and a new street network will be created, and a new access point will align with the Madison subdivision entrance. Sidewalks shall be provided on both sides and at the north and east legs of the Hume Olive and Evans Road intersection. New pedestrian accommodations, including push buttons and crosswalk indicators, shall be provided. A letter of impact from Wake County School System was received for this rezoning, and it is included in the packet. The school system indicates that elementary, middle, and high school within the current assignment area for this rezoning are anticipated to have insufficient capacity for future students. Transportation to schools outside the current assignment area should be anticipated. The Apex Advisory Board held a pre-application meeting for this rezoning on April 15th. The zoning conditions suggested by the EAB are listed on page 6 of the staff report, along with the applicant's response to each condition. The Parks and Rec and Cultural Advisory Commission reviewed the project on June 30th and unanimously recommended fee in lieu of dedication with credit for construction of Greenway Trail if an opportunity is identified at the time of master subdivision plan review and approval. Planning staff can recommend approval of the rezoning with the conditions as proposed by the applicant. The planning board held a public hearing on August 9th and unanimously voted to recommend approval of the rezoning with the conditions as offered. The applicant's team is also here if you have any additional questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lofton. Any questions for Ms. Lofton before we open up the public hearing? Okay, hearing none. Ready to open up the public hearing. First, Neil Gosh.
Thank you, Ms. Lofton, for your presentation. And good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Dozier and members of the Town Council. My name is Neil Ghosh. I am an attorney with the Morningstar Law Group at 112 West Main Street in Durham, and I'm representing the applicant, Beezer Homes, for this rezoning request. You all may recall a previous rezoning request for acreage in this area to accommodate a daycare. That rezoning request was denied and moreover was vehemently opposed by neighbors in both Bella Casa and in Madison. At that time, the neighbors made clear that they wanted this site to develop residentially. And I think it's important to remember that. Planning Commissioner Mark Steele, who lives in Madison, he certainly did remember it, and he strongly supported the project with the rest of the Planning Commission because of its many benefits. Obviously, our project proposes a residential neighborhood on about 35 acres of land. In total, we have capped the number of units to no more than 115. So if you do the math, the overall density is less than 3.5 dwelling units per acre. The community will include both single family and townhouses, but the townhouses are capped at no more than 50. Additionally, consistent with the future land use map, the townhomes are limited to the southern section of the assemblage, furthest away from existing homes and closest to the main thoroughfare. This plan is consistent with the town's long-range plans in terms of density, mix of housing types, and the location of those housing. This project also includes a lot of infrastructure, especially for a relatively small project. I'm sure you all are familiar with the hardly improved portion of Walden Road south of Bella Casa. With this project, we are seeking to have NCDOT abandon its portion of Walden Road so we can instead build a Town of Apex Road through the project area that runs more north-south than at the current angle of Walden. Surprisingly, that section of Walden actually does get a fair amount of use. which usually ends up in dirt being tracked onto the nice portion of Walden and in the Bella Costa neighborhood, and also large dust clouds. Some of our neighbors, especially those to the east, pointed out that while the improvement to Walden Road would be a welcome change, they do not want to end up with a speedway that folks may use as a cut through. We agree. We don't know exactly how the new Walden Road will intersect with our internal roads, but we believe there may be an opportunity for us to implement one of those mini roundabouts that's already in Bella Casa or some other traffic calming measure. After all, Beezer does not want its new residents to have to contend with folks speeding by their newly built homes either. Additionally, and I think this is big, Beezer has worked out a private agreement with the Stallings for a much needed sewer easement. The Stallings property, which is not part of this request, represents the natural gravity feed for about 95 additional acres in this basin. By doing the legwork to work out a private agreement, Beezer has secured the ability to expand the town's sewer infrastructure in the most logical manner without the town having to step in. That piece of infrastructure alone will be very important to the town's ability to grow its tax base in this basin. The plan also includes possible Greenway infrastructure at time of master subdivision. We'll be working with Parks and Rec to determine the best route for a possible Greenway as outlined in the PUD document. Our plan also includes adding pedestrian infrastructure, including crosswalks across Evans and across Hume Olive roads to provide safer options for students who walk to school. Those crosswalks are committed and currently are contemplated at the intersection of Evans and Hume Olive. However, our goal is that by adding 2 additional crosswalks, we can increase the walk zone for the Friendship campus. We have already reached out to Wake County Public School System, and we are committed to working with them through our master subdivision approval to see if we can increase the walk zone. You might recall that a walk audit was conducted in March of 2018 for the high school. At that time, folks indicated they did not feel comfortable crossing Hume Olive at that location, but that's not surprising because at the time that the walk audit was performed, that signal was not operational. Even though it's only been 3 years since that walk audit, given the proposed and existing infrastructure improvements since then, I think a new walk audit may be in order and could result in expanding the walk zone. At least that's our hope. And since I brought up the topic of schools, I'll stay on that for a minute. We are not blind to the fact that there is a school capacity issue in Apex and in fact in several other Wake County municipalities. We also know that there's very little that we or even the town can do to address that, especially on a project-by-project basis. But the only way for new development on this site to not have any impact on the school system is for it to be developed as non-residential. The people and the council have already spoken in that regard. And this is not the site for non-residential. That having been said, in an attempt to mitigate some of those impacts of the school system, we do want to add a commitment that a minimum of 10% of the single-family detached homes will provide the primary bedroom on the main floor. In our experience, this type of housing appeals to an older buyer whose children are more likely to have graduated from high school already. Anecdotally, Beezer just finished a small townhome community on Salem Street called Southwalk. That is about 3.5 miles away from this site. Of the roughly 40 townhomes that they sold in that community, only 2 were sold to families with children. The townhomes planned in this community are the same floor plans as those in Southwalk, so perhaps the townhome portion here will not have as great an impact on the school system as one might imagine. And while we're adding commitments, I also want to note that we are committing to providing a donation to the Apex Affordable Housing Fund equal to $215 per residential lot at time of final plat. I feel like I've been speaking for a while, but that only is because the project includes so much. Regardless, let me wrap up by reminding folks of the people that you do not see tonight. This assemblage consists of 20 parcels, but those 20 parcels are owned by somewhere close to 100 people. Just getting those contracts together to amass this assemblage is a feat in itself, and I doubt is going to be repeated. It's very difficult to repeat anyway. And I bring this up because your vote tonight will have an impact on more than 100 owners that you do not see tonight. We also understand that your vote tonight will impact the residents of the town of Apex as well, but I just want to remind you all that there are many more people who hope to see this project succeed tonight than are in this room. I know you've heard from some of them, and I just want to make sure you keep those folks in mind as you deliberate tonight. I appreciate your time. We have our team available to answer any questions, and we look forward to your vote tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. No questions for Mr. Ghosh, but we do have a few people signed up, so.
I do have one. Can you describe the nature of the conversation you had with staff regarding the affordable housing? Because in the plan, it mentioned conversations that occurred that were not really fruitful besides the per lot donation.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you're asking what our conversations with staff were around the affordable housing
And it was mentioned there, but not many details. And I was wondering if you could provide some of those.
Yeah, so we did share the condition that I just mentioned. We did share that with staff today. And staff did mention last week, I think at some point, that they would recommend that we make a commitment to affordable housing in some regard. And so having mulled that over, that is the condition that we came up with.
Okay, that one, okay. That's the new thing. Okay.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
That is a new condition, yes.
Mr. Gant.
I have some questions, but I think I'd like to hear from the
Okay.
people first.
All right.
the
Anyone
speakers,
else?
And then I'd like to
Same.
circle back
Okay,
to Mr.
same.
Ghosh.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ghosh.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, Larry Harris Sr.
Good afternoon. Mayor Pro Tem Dozier and other council members. I'm here to support the development of the Evans Road project. But before I do that, by way of introduction, I want to thank the council and remind you of an occasion when my sister and I had an occasion to come before you to recommend a program to recognize our historical Rosenwald schools. I have great news this evening. We just celebrated the unveiling of the first Rosenwald marker out on Hume Olive Road. Thank you very much for approving it. I promised you that if you would do that, that you'd be proud one day. So kudos to you. Thank you very much. Some key people such as our great planning department, Diane King, Liz Lofton, Joe Curtin, and a few others. They were so instrumental in developing this program and so helpful all along the way. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So my main purpose, as I stated, is to be here to support the development of the Evans Road project. It is something that we feel it fits a saying that I love to say, that the arc of our moral universe is long, but it always points toward justice. This is a project that tends to the historical community of friendship, justice for 181 years of its existence. It was established in 1840, some 33 years before Apex was chartered. So this project gives the opportunity for some of the offsprings of people who have passed on, who have left homes on lots of land that are deteriorating. And it is an opportunity for some of the residents in other states to come back home and enjoy the benefits of their inheritance. We have sold quite a bit of land in Friendship. I would say we've sold over 200 acres in the Evans family, all on Richardson Road. If you name 10 families down there, all of them would be my cousins. So this is a great opportunity, and I think that Beazer Homes has done a great job in working with us in many areas to beautify this area and our land. They've done things like working with our cemeteries. The cemetery was a kind of an eyesore, so this is an opportunity to dress up the cemetery. The beautiful schools there, It's going to be enhanced by nice homes as you enter Evans Road. We've had problems with our wells, our septic tanks, and we need the sewer and water that Apex has to offer as we are annexed. So we asked you to work with Beazer and approve the project. And I mentioned the relatives who've gone away. You may not know, between 1917 and 1970, the great black migration took many of my brothers and sisters north for lack of opportunity here, to cities like Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, New York. And they've done well there, but that's not home. And they want to come back home. And I think this project and projects like this will give my relatives an opportunity to come back to their native land. So I asked you to carefully consider the approval of the project. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Katie Nash? Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Katie Nash?
I'm going to default to him, but
Okay.
I'd like to speak after that, please.
Hey, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Dozier, members of the Town Council. My name is Brian Feekers. I am also on this list, and so I will concede my time later. I'll put my glasses on also, so I'll look smart.
Okay, I got you.
I am not a realtor. I'm not a land developer. I am just a normal, ordinary citizen of Apex. And over the course of the last few months since the neighborhood meeting, I've learned an awful lot about how development is done in this town. There's still an awful lot that I don't understand, and I don't think that that will be a surprise to many in this room. I grew up in a small town in Vermont and came here a few years ago. In Vermont, when you own a house in a town, you have the opportunity to go to elementary, middle, and high school in that town. It doesn't appear to be the case here, and that's unfortunate, because I think a lot of people move to this town for the sense of community that it instills. And we are, because of the rapid rate of growth in Apex, we're not being afforded that right anymore. I met with members of the town council, I've met with the mayor, I've met with the developers. I participated in the planning board meeting, and I heard at the planning board meeting that elementary, middle, and high school are already at capacity. So the future families of this development that is proposed tonight will not have the opportunity to go to school in their neighborhood adjacent schools, which is a strange thing. So all of the discussion about walk zones to Apex Friendship High School are kind of already obsolete. So I also understand that there's about 4,000 homes currently that are approved and in some phase of development in Apex alone. 4,000 homes already. Add to that, I feel like I'm on the tarmac at LaGuardia, and there's just planes circling, and all these planes are looking for a landing spot, and they're looking for Apex to be that landing spot to build their next project. Well, we have to have the infrastructure in place in order to support that. The 2045 plan is 25 years away for a reason, right? Because we need time to develop the infrastructure to support this wonderful place that we get to call home. And I'm afraid that if we rush it, we won't have that in place. So I'm not a resident here saying, don't ever build an Apex again. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is let's build responsibly. Let's pause. Let's give the schools the opportunity to catch up, because right now we're at a place where we're going to have to ship the future families of these homes to Garner, to other places, not Apex, in order to support their educational needs. And that's a big reason why people are moving here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So Katie, you said you're not speaking. You are. Okay.
Thank you, Town Council, for allowing us to address this issue. Basically, I just want to reiterate what he had said about, but most of all about the schools. I believe that growth is an important thing. I've lived here for 16 years and I've seen the massive growth that this town has had. But Why must we accelerate this and exceed what our children are going to school and having to sit right next to each other, or not even being able to go to a school that they see across the street? This neighborhood is not going to need crosswalks because they're never going to those schools. And that's just really disappointing because this is an amazing community. And why don't we grow responsibly? That's all I'm asking. Why can't we slow this down? Why are we building houses on houses on houses before we have roads and transportation and schools that can manage it? This morning in front of Apex Friendship Middle was a complete disaster. The amount of traffic, the amount of school buses, the shortage of people that will help with the infrastructure is non-existent. So I don't understand how we can add more and more and more people. We're going to ruin this town, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Nash. Kevin Thorpe.
Good evening, Town Council. I'm Minister Kevin Thorpe from Mount Zion Baptist Church over on Mount Zion Church Road. I just thank you guys for the opportunity to stand before you this evening. I want to say to the gentleman who spoke earlier, you're not ordinary. It takes extraordinary people to care about a place well enough to come and speak about it. And I understand your passion as well. I grew up right there in 7628 Hume Olive Road. I went to Apex Elementary as kindergartner and graduated from Apex High School in 1984. Went on to serve my country in the United States Navy. I talked about Apex from Spain to California and how great of a place it is. And I think it's still a great place, and it's getting better and better each and every day. I just want to express that the piece of land that my grandfather settled was more than the 5.3 acres that's currently left to me. It consisted of about 15 to 20 acres at one time. And he tilled that ground, he cut down those trees. He made a life for himself, my grandmother, his 4 daughters, and 1 son. And the last surviving heir, my uncle Latha Wayne Powell. He did that with his hands, and he cared about his neighbors, his neighborhood. He cared about his family. Here, we have a group of people who've assembled because they care. And I think everyone cares. I'm here to say I'm in approval for the development of this property by Beazer. They've taken into great consideration the feelings that we have. I'm emotional about it a little bit because it means so much to me, but they've taken into great consideration how much we care about the property. We're just not unloading this. We have other opportunities that people have come in. It wasn't appealing to us, but they've made a commitment to keep and honor the heritage that was there. They are honoring the cemetery where our grandparents and great aunts and great uncles were buried at, and they come in to develop an area to make it a little better and give other folks the same opportunity that others have had for the Bellicasas and other neighborhoods that people have come into. Friendship is a place, I have on a shirt that talks about friendship. Friendship is a place that we've always extended our hands to people. And that it's not just friendship, but this Apex that I wear uniforms for basketball and baseball and football and stuff. This community is one of the greatest places on earth to me. And you may object to that, but you can't prove it to me because I love Apex. I love the place that I grew up in. I love the people of the community. And I think that people are circling and they're wanting to come to Apex because it's a great place. And I didn't believe it when I was in high school that it was the peak of good living, but I think it is the peak of good living. But it's the peak of good living people and the grace that God has given us to have a community that cares. It's not in every county, it's not in every state or every city. But here, we care about one another. And I think Beazer is going to be a good part of that family setting. And I've prayed long and hard about it. I didn't want to do it at first, but once they told us about what they were going to do and how they were going to honor the legacy, I bought into that. And I think they will continue to serve the community. I think they'll be expanding the community base. And I think they'll be doing a good service to the town of Apex. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe. Mark Steele, and then I'm going to go back to Mr. Roach next, and then Nate Boudwin. I don't know how to pronounce that. Okay. All right.
Mayor Pro Tem and the council, I'm Mark Steele of 2221 Madison Creek Drive, right across Evans Road from this planned development. I spoke to you many years ago about opposition to a commercial, which you heard the developer talk about, and we were successful with the backing of the town council. And now I'm 100% in support of the development that is being proposed. Why? Because it meets all of the conditions that the neighborhood I live in, Madison and Evans Creek, as well as the long-lived neighbors of ours in the Friendship area. We were all united in opposing a commercial development. We wanted residential, and now we're going to get it. We wanted the street network to be unified, to be as the way the town had planned, to connect us through to Bella Casa, to provide more safe places to walk our dogs and to ride our bicycles, and that's being provided. We also wanted it to be consistent with the land use map, and this is. But there's one other thing that we didn't know then, because we were still fairly new. We moved here 5 years ago. And now we've really gotten to be friends and neighbors with the Harris and the Evans family and the Judd family. And now we realize the history of friendship that Larry talked about when he recognized the talk you gave at the middle school this past Sunday to recognize the Rosenwald School marker. And what we now realize is we're living in an ancient community of friendship. And not just friendship in name, but friendship in spirit. And we've been welcomed there. And we are looking forward to having more neighbors. But there's something different about the Beezer development than the one I live in. The one I live in is very diverse ethnically, but it's very uniform economically. All the houses are tidy, small lots, but they're all at about the same price level. In the Beezer development, there's going to be the townhomes, which will be much more affordable. And then there are going to be a lot of homes that are really similar to mine right across Evans Road. And then there'll be a few that are a little larger as they blend into Bella Casa. So I think Beezer's been very thoughtful about trying to provide a wider range, not as wide as I think the town would like ultimately with affordable housing. I don't think that site is appropriate economically, meaning it probably couldn't get the grants it needed at that location. But I think that the way they've designed it is a step in the right direction to providing a little more diversity of economic levels in the Friendship area, which I think would be very appropriate. So I urge you to vote yes, and knowing that the neighbors right across the street are fully in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Jeffrey?
I have nothing to say.
Okay. And what about Nate? Okay, all right. So, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and send the matter back to council for a discussion. Would you like to talk more to the applicant? What's your pleasure?
I have a question for the applicant.
Okay, Mr. Ghosh.
In listening to the speakers, I heard phrases like friendship and spirit and housing legacy and justice. And I was curious about the housing affordability. And I think we did talk about this a few days ago. Is there any possibility of actually having affordable homes in this project?
So we did talk about this, and thank you for bringing it up. I think, as Mark Steele mentioned, our assessment is that this site is not a great site for affordable housing given its location. And also, we have not heard that desire from our neighbors that they would like to see affordable housing here, which is why we felt that a commitment to making a donation to Apex's Affordable Housing Fund would be a great way to contribute to affordable housing in the town of Apex.
And I do appreciate you offering 10% of having homes with primary bedrooms. Is there any way you could increase that percent? Would you consider that?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can increase that to 25%. So, and I'm looking for staff. We'll put this on the. Yep, exactly. We'll do that, but I think we can commit to 25% of the single-family homes having a primary bedroom on the main floor.
The reason I asked that, and I appreciate that, I think you said we can't control the school capacity issue, but we can influence it.
Sure.
And this is a way of doing that, is we work to try to be creative in trying to influence school capacity issues. So I appreciate that. And I think I said in our Friday meeting, and I will say this to all of our developer partners, you can facilitate conversations in our community, and we would appreciate that going forward. To all our developer friends that were here, we need conversations with property owners in the school system, and we would appreciate your help with that.
Absolutely.
I've got a couple questions. So there is a mention of Energy Star or other energy efficiency rating. Have you
Yes.
defined what that other energy efficiency rating is?
Well, I will say that that was the wording that the Environmental Advisory Board recommended. I don't want to overstate the point, but I believe Beazer Homes has achieved an Energy Star rating on like every home they built in like the last 2 decades or something like that. So that's what the language is from the EAB, but Beazer is committed to it.
Okay. So, because that language is so, you know.
It's nebulous. I agree. And normally I wouldn't, as an attorney, say, view that as like the best way to write that condition. However, Beazer knows they can hit the mark, and so they were happy to commit to it.
Okay. All right. And then there was mention earlier of honoring the legacy of this property in the area of Friendship. How does this development do that?
So I think maybe the number one is the obvious hole in the community, which is the existing cemetery. So though not part of the zoning, Beazer has been in discussions with the family members in this area, and so Beazer will be making it a nicer facility, I believe adding a gate or fence or something like that, and also providing better access to it through the road network. And so that's one of the things that is going to be, honoring the legacy here. The other thing is the Walden Road name is a family name. And our hope is to continue, is to carry that name forward when we abandon it and realign it. I think everyone's probably aware of the portion of Walden Road that is south of Tramini in Bellicasa is still called Walden Road. North of that, it's called something else. And so our hope is that we can continue the family name on the road as we realign it.
We also have an agreement with the family to, as we work through master subdivision plan, construction drawing, to work with the various governing bodies to memorialize other family names in the roadway network as appropriate by what is allowable.
Can you repeat that for the record, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And Beazer, through their contracts with the family, they do have an agreement that as they're working through their master subdivision plan and getting road names internal to the neighborhood, that they would work with the family to hopefully preserve more family names in the road network. We don't know if those road names are available, and so that will be determined as we're working through our site plan.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Ghost. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question. So my question is about tree preservation. Can you discuss any zoning conditions or any other activities you'll do to preserve larger trees or tree canopy cover? Is there anything in here?
Sure. I'm going to turn to Jeff, who is going to make his way up here. And while he's making his way up here, I did just want to make the point that we understand that the schools across the way are capped, and the crosswalks that we'll be adding may not be used by the people who live in this neighborhood to access those schools, but those crosswalks are public amenities, and our goal is to work with the Wake County Public School System to increase the walk zone east of Evans Road, whether it's for the benefit of our neighborhood or for the benefit of Apex generally. Just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Don't go far.
Absolutely.
Mayor Pro Tem Dozier, members of council, Jeff Roach, Peak Engineering and Design. Thanks for having me tonight, and I really apologize for my phone going off midway through the meeting. That was me, and I'm sorry, guys. Mr. Mahaffey, to answer your questions, we actually reached out to another partner that's done other projects in the area, Heelan Track, Depot 499, and looked at some of the tree preservation agreements that they had made in the past. And I'm happy to let you know that Beazer, earlier today, we talked to them about some numbers. And looking over, and Amanda, I apologize because Liz, is going to be a long condition, but we'll get it written out here in a couple minutes. Based on the acreage and the calculations, I'm going to read generally what's going into this. The demonstration of project's commitment to preserving and reestablishing tree canopy in the region The developer seeks to replant and restore a tree canopy. Without going through all the language of this, Mr. Mahaffey, on the 34.5 acre assemblage with a 35% RCA calculation, that puts us squarely in the middle of about $7,300 donation to a tree fund. Just to give you some numbers here, we got about 23 acres of developable land on the property, which includes single-family townhomes or street right-of-way. And so what we looked at is we compared that to the Heelan project, which recently came through and had the same commitment. We also looked at there was another project, I don't think it was Depot 499, maybe it was up on Evans Road somewhere else. But they averaged about $300 an acre for tree replanting. So that's how we worked our number backwards to a 7,350 number. And we will write up a condition if that suits Mr. Mahaffey with staff here in a moment.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions for me?
Sorry, did I hear a tree replacement condition, or did I hear that?
No, that's what, in this, as a reestablishment of trees, we're agreeing to the fund, because actually in this site, there aren't going to be a lot of places to replant. We've got the RCA requirement, we've got play lawn requirements, and then on lots. So we actually run out of places on projects to replant. So what we actually do is either look to staff for areas to replant on Arbor Day, or we go to a fund and say, okay, you guys are going to replant somewhere. We'd like to make a donation.
Gotcha, thank you. Okay.
And I'll work with staff on that language here too.
Any more questions for Mr. Roach? Okay. Anyone else have any more questions for the applicant?
So there was a discussion about, or a mention of affordability of townhomes versus single-family homes. Do you know what the affordability would be?
So I think the townhomes would be more affordable than the single family. I know that this product was sold in the Southwalk neighborhood, and the townhomes I'm talking about, and those were in the $400,000 range. So that's, I guess, what we would expect here as well.
Any other questions or comments? So I have a couple of questions. I was noting what folks were discussing here, and one of the things I wanted to circle back to is about honoring the history and the assemblage and what that means to the family, and what the history of friendship and all. So I guess related to that, I do appreciate the thought of trying to name things. I mean, that's what we do. We name things by people. We named our community center by John Brown. Like, we name things to honor people and to not forget. And that's great. But I would like to see something else. And I don't know what that is. But I think, there could be something. I don't know if it's like, art, or I don't know what it is, but I feel like when I'm looking at these developments that are coming and all the challenges that we have, that like she said, it wasn't created by the people. But I need to find something that's unique or different about this, that because I try to be consistent with the way I view projects. And so I want to know if there's some other way to really honor history that makes it different, and to not really deal with affordable housing in the project because the neighbors didn't ask for affordable housing is not a good enough answer for me, actually. So I want to see a commitment to some of the housing as affordable, not just the fund. That's just where I am right now. That's what I really would like to see. And to me, that would honor the history, because then we maybe can attract more diverse people, since this is a land from diverse people. So
I agree with that, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for bringing that up.
If you don't mind, could I just take a minute to?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
as long as they're working here.
We used to have a break and give them more time.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I think we're gonna, to give the applicant more time, go ahead and call a break. Let's try to come back by,
7:40?
yeah, by 7:40 be fine. Thank you.
I've been pretty hard on them on walkability, and they're gonna. I want them to put a Greenway, call it Greenway Infrastructure. It's not built yet, but once it's here, that's all that. I think that part, it'll connect all the way up to the Well, I got it's a professional. I don't really know exactly how it's going to go. It's more about our plan. There'll be yeah, probably Terry. Okay.
Side conversation too.
Should have heard.
Terry's over there. Brett, okay.
Strong. I know. Frustrating me. Yes. And
Where did Audra go? Oh, there she is on the other side. Okay. I couldn't see her. Miss Killingsworth, you ready? So hopefully that helped you out there. So I think we took a break because we talked about, I was talking about a little bit about honoring history and, oh, thank you, honoring history and how we could do that beyond naming, which is good to do too. So do you have anything for me?
Yeah, absolutely on that piece. So I think this commitment, which we're happy to add to the zoning, but I feel like this is a commitment really to the family. And we will continue to work with the family on naming rights for the community itself and the roads within it. However, we also want to add a commitment that we will include a historical marker in each of the play lawns in this community. And the intent there is to preserve the friendship name and legacy, which is important to the family. They've indicated, that name has been around a long time, and they want the history to live on. So those historical markers will have some information on them. This project requires at least 2 play lawns. So in each of those play lawns, and if we do more play lawns, we would commit to putting a historical marker, and the content of that historical marker will be worked on in conjunction with the family and obviously the town.
Okay, thank you for that. And I also mentioned that affordable housing would be a great way to honor the history of people who were in the Great Migration, who left for what they thought was a better opportunity and during that time and now coming back. So I think affordable housing is a great way to do that besides the commitment of $215 per lot. So I want to know what your response is to me on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had some discussions with a few Bella Costa members who are here, and talked about different ways to try to do this. So what I think the Bella Casa neighbors were most comfortable with, and something which my client would be willing to commit to, is to have 10% of the townhomes be established on lots that are 15% narrower than the other townhome lots. And so by reducing the size, the hope is to reduce also the cost of those homes.
And so I think you mentioned was about $400,000. Is that correct? That you mentioned to Ms. Killingsworth, is that right?
So what I mentioned was $400,000 is the price range at which these townhomes were selling in the Southwalk community on Salem Street, about 3.5 miles away.
Okay. Were there other conditions that do you believe that you satisfied all the conditions of the Bella Casa neighbors most impacted?
Should we speak on that, or?
I've already closed the public hearing. I'm really sorry, but
I still like being spoken for by someone that
well, you all did have an opportunity to speak during the public hearing, and so we did note what you were saying, but I wanted to know if he believes that he has addressed your concern. That's my question to him. Yeah.
I believe that we've addressed most of the concerns. I mean, there's concerns about buffers and stream impacts and road connections, but some of those things are, the road connections are what they are. And as a result, there are going to be impacts to riparian features on the property. Increasing the buffers, we've looked at it. We're trying to provide more housing in a rapidly growing community, and at the same time address several other requirements. I don't think we're going to be able to commit to increased buffers here, which I know is something that the Bella Casa neighbors were interested in.
That's unfortunate. Okay, so Councilmember Killingsworth, you were about to say something before we went on break related to historical, honoring history.
I believe that's addressed through the historical markers, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can I add to the historical thing? Can you describe a little bit more in detail the maybe driveway improvements related to the grave, the cemetery? And in particular, I was thinking
the agreements and
let me maybe in particular, is there a possibility you guys have thought about like for a public art easement near that driveway, such that maybe at some point there can be some kind of public art that could go in that on one side of the driveway or the other?
So we haven't thought about public art easement, to answer your question directly, and I'm wondering if someone from our team can speak on the contractual obligations regarding the cemetery.
Mr. Gant, Jeff Roach still. The first one is the contractual obligations with the cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
There is a public access requirement with the families to get to it. The way we've designed the site, it'll be on the backside so they can come in. They're not going to be parking on Evans Road.
It's not coming from Evans?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
The idea was to bring them onto the backside here.
Okay.
And they can also access this little finger here. We were looking at a couple locations for a gate to get into the cemetery area through the buffer that's provided around it.
Okay. Well, I was assuming it was coming from Evans, and that would be the higher facility.
Because we don't know if they'll be walking or driving, so we give them access into the back of the site, yet still get them access through a gate. That way they're not parking on Evans Road and trying to walk through. That's the only area they can get through.
Okay.
And that will be adjacent to open space or RCA within our project. So it will be maintained or it will be landscaped to get access to that cemetery. To answer your second question about public art, it's not a public art location. And that's why in talking with the families, we agreed to the historical markers with the play lawns instead of trying to do something there at the intersection with Madison. Because then you look across the road and there's no public art at Madison, I think would look a little offset.
Okay, thanks.
Before you step away, Jeff, I wanted to follow up in the same conversation with the cemetery. Can you expand a bit? I'm a little concerned because the cemetery is not going to be fully enclosed in your neighborhood. How's the cemetery going to be maintained in the future, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years down the road? Who's going to mow it? Who's going to take care of it?
So and that's one of the reasons the cemetery didn't come into the project, because there's so many heirs out there. I don't know, Jason, if you know, or Mr. Harris knows who actually, the relatives that are there. Right now it's being maintained by the families of the relatives that are interned there. So it is internal to our project. But as you can see all over Wake County, there are little squares everywhere, and those are private cemeteries everywhere. So there is access to it. We are providing the gates and the little fence around it to kind of beautify the area.
So the HOA that covers this area, would that maintain the fence?
No, it will be actually given to the family. It'll remain on the cemetery property. That small fence that's put in is for the families that our relatives are interned there, whoever owns the Stewart Cemetery. So it's not maintained by our HOA.
I see.
Okay? Is
That's
that question? Okay.
Well, is it planned, I guess in that case, then, is it planned to be a metal fence to have a lower maintenance?
Yeah, it's a small, I think the idea is a small metal fence around it.
Okay.
Not a chain link fence, type fence to restrict access, but just to give the other problem with that cemetery, actually a couple of the graves are actually off of that property. So the fence will also, show where those are and keep them kind of, kept in. That sounds really bad. It'll delineate where the cemetery is. Yeah, where the grave sites are.
Listen, I know we're all over the map here with talking about different things, but on this cemetery, I'm concerned about the preservation and maintenance of the cemetery longer term. And I think maybe it might be appropriate, I don't know if it is, but I throw it out there, for some HOA covenant to somehow commit to maintain it or keep the fence up or something so it can be preserved in the future.
So I think Jeff touched on this earlier. That property is not part of the rezoning. It's also not part of it's not part of what Beazer is acquiring, and therefore we won't be able to put zoning conditions on it or covenants. I can appreciate your concern, but I mean, it is a family grave, and Beazer is trying to beautify it and provide a better resting place for those that are interned there. But as far as maintenance, I can't think of a legal hook to provide ongoing maintenance on Beazer's end for that.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ghost, can you just repeat again, please, what you're offering in terms of housing affordability with the lots? Could you just repeat that one more time, please?
Sure, I'll try anyway. That 10% of the townhome lots will be 15% narrower. Yeah, that's pretty much yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go back to the question I asked you related to whether whether you felt that you had addressed the concerns of the people most directly impacted. And so you did address their concern about affordable housing. You did address that. I want to know what else you will address for the people most directly impacted.
So the question you asked earlier was whether we addressed the concerns of Bella Casa neighbors. The question you just asked was whether we've addressed the concerns of those most impacted. And to that, I would answer yes. The family who's been in charge of the land is the ones that are most impacted by it.
I think you know what I mean, though, right?
And we have made a lot of commitments to honor their legacy.
Okay. I think you know what I was asking you, right? I'm asking you, the people you just said that the neighbors didn't want, had concern about affordable housing, and so that's why you didn't want to do affordable housing, and so the neighbors were good with this. So I'm asking you then to provide me with another thing the neighbors have asked you for that you weren't able to offer them, that originally you weren't able to offer them. That's what I'm asking for. So they asked for more buffers, you mentioned things. So are there other things that you can do to make them feel better about the impact to their property? That's what I'm asking you, what they feel.
Ms. Doge, do you mind if I kind of attack that? Is that okay? I had a phone call with a neighbor earlier today, and I had a list of 7 questions that she asked me. And these are generally compiled from her and her neighbors, and I apologize, I'm not going to name her. I'm not going to say what exactly she asked, but I'll give you the list of the 7. The first one is she asked us to close the street to Bella Casa during construction. Absolutely. We do that on every project. We did it on Horton Park. We do it on every project we deal with when there's a stub street. We do not want our trucks going through there. So that's one of the conditions that was asked, absolutely. There's an overhead power line on Walden Road that goes into Bella Casa because it serves a piece of property that is still in the county. That piece of property continues to stay on Duke Power. We don't know if we can move that overhead power pole, but we are sure as heck going to try with Duke Energy to get that moved. So that's two. The sewer easement was a concern of hers. We've addressed that with a private public sewer easement that will be dedicated upon construction by Beazer Homes. That's 3. 4, reduce traffic with speed implementation. We think that the east-west from Madison and Evans over to Vasari Vitrina and Bellicasa is more than 1,000 feet, which means it's required to have some type of traffic calming device. That could be a mini roundabout, that could be narrower on-street parking. We're going to work through that, but that's a site plan issue that we will work through with staff. So that's 4. 5 was an increased buffer on the northern boundary. Bellicasa currently has a 10-foot buffer. We've doubled that buffer on our site to 20 feet. So now we have a 30-foot strip of undisturbed area. Undisturbed, we're going to keep our grading out of it to maintain and preserve any of the trees that are in the area. So that's number 5. Number 6, she asked about the main entrance. Where is the main entrance to the development? The main entrance is off of Evans Road because that's where our full access is going to be. We're proposing a right in, right out on Hume Olive because we do not want to get in that mess at 7:30 on Hume Olive with schools. Buses, kids walking to class and everything else. So we do not want to get into that mess trying to make somebody go out, make a left turn to go down towards Fishes. Fish is an old US 1. The 7th was the matching of the street section within Bellicasa from both the east and the north. We're going to match what's there to town standards, which is a 27-foot back-to-back section. We're going to actually upgrade from what Bellicasa has, which is sidewalk on one side of the street. Our project will have sidewalk on both sides because it is a PUD and it's required in the ordinance. So those were the 7 items, Ms. Dozier, that were asked earlier today, and I think they're very easy for us to take care of those items. 6 of those are very easy for us to take care of. The lighting, the overhead power lines, we think we can address, but we don't know until we ask Duke Power. So those are 7 items that were brought to us today from Bellicasa, and we think we have ways to address most of them. So we've worked really hard with those neighbors to try to address some of their concerns. I hope that answers your question. And I'm sorry for butting in with Neil, but that was a conversation that I thought you would like to hear.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay.
And you're still committing to 25% of the homes having the primary bedroom on the first floor, is that correct?
Correct. Of the single-family homes, that's right.
Okay, single family.
So, Mr. Ghosh, you mentioned the 2018 walk audit, and that's funny because I did that walk audit and with parents and some school officials and some town officials. And so if this passes, I'm willing to do a walk audit with you so if that's something you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's probably overdue already. Even though it's only 3 years old, I think the main issue was when that walk audit was done, the light at Hume Olive and Evans was not operational, which makes a big difference on your ability to cross Hume Olive.
Right. All right. So we're all good? All right. So I'm going to send the matter back to council. Is there a motion?
When they addressed the fact that Bellicasa was represented, that's not all the people in Bellicasa. We would like to know who they spoke to about.
Okay, I appreciate you being here and y'all signing up and speaking and staying, but I'll make sure that we get the information that was provided. We have our emails, and if this passes, that's what we will be dealing with. But thank you so much for being here.
You guys are aware 100 yards away from this development, we're going to do the same thing. He said he's going to build the same type of environment all around where we are. So I'm sure you guys are well aware of that, but if there's problems now, there's going to be problems later.
I just don't think it's
Okay, we got. Okay, I'm really sorry, but I don't, I can't allow y'all to keep talking. We close the hearing because I can't do that for everybody. But thank you for being here and expressing yourself. I appreciate it very much. So I am sending the matter back to council. Is there any discussion leading to a motion? Any further discussion leading to a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second. With the condition, sorry, with the.
Okay.
All that was
So
added.
accepting
Sorry.
all of the conditions.
Yeah.
That were just offered by Mr. Ghosh, and then that were offered kind of through the email and that was worked out during the break.
Yes.
Okay. You accept all those as well?
Yep.
All right, any further discussion?
I just want to point out that a lot of it's been about schools, and I had a chance to hear from some of the candidates that, running for Morrisville Town Council, and they had very similar issues. And I strongly believe, and I keep saying this, that Wake County needs to change the way they build schools, because Morrisville's mostly built out, and Apex is going to be is getting there a little bit, and it's their responsibility to build these schools, and I think they need to adjust how they're doing it and build smaller STEM or magnet schools that would fit on smaller parcels of land. So I fully anticipate an acute problem with the schools here, but long term, I think these kids will walk to school, because in 20 years, like my neighborhood is, it will be different.
Okay, but, excuse me.
So anyway, that's been a lot of discussions with the schools, and I believe it can be achieved with a different mindset from the Wake County schools and the county commissioners.
Thank you. Anyone else? Discussion?
I'll have some comments, I guess. Okay. There's a lot here that we went through. A lot of concerns expressed by the neighbors. School issues obviously very large. I disagree with some of the comments made. I think we have paid a lot of attention to school capacity. We went through a 6-month period in Apex where nothing was approved at all as we tried to figure out what we can do. And we're here kind of at the end of that. And what we have to decide tonight is, have we done enough? What more can we do? Is our approach the correct one? Progress has been made that we need to acknowledge. We have new schools coming now because of that efforts there. So I guess that's the decision we have to make, as to how far do we take that and what other policies can we put in place. And I've had some discussion with some developers, and I'll just say, I think more can be done if we put this school issue at the forefront when these applications are submitted, in terms of stretching out the timetable that some of these are committing to when you do a PUD. My understanding is that's not a great thing to ask for today, but maybe if our staff were to bring up potential school capacity mitigations earlier, more stuff can be done in the process. So I'll throw that out there. There are some concerns expressed about traffic. I went through the traffic study. The traffic study here was pristine. Everything got A and B grade. I think there was one C intersection in the whole thing. There were no actual mitigations proposed except by our staff. Our staff came back and said, actually, on this one intersection, we'd like you to do some pedestrian crossings, which they agreed to. So that's what happened is the engineer said, there's very little impact to the traffic, and then our staff said, let's do some more, and they agreed to it. And concerning that intersection, the reason that keeps coming up is because the intersection of Hume Olive and Evans has this free-flowing right-hand turn. That's dangerous. You don't have to stop. You go into this turning lane, you merge over, and from a walking to school standpoint, that's really bad, because you don't have to stop for a kick drop. I mean, there's signs there, but if it's free-flowing, people are used to that movement, it's a potentially dangerous situation. It's something I think that's been identified by the school system as hurting the walkability of the area, and the light helps. I think what this proposal does is adds 2 more crossing sections, one across Evans to get to the island there without hitting the free-throwing right, and then another one across Hume Olive on the east side of it, which doesn't have that issue. And that should help walkability. So I think that's important to note is the traffic issue. And finally, with affordability, that's a big concern of mine as well. And the reason that we ask for contributions, or the reasons that projects offer contributions to our Affordable Housing Fund, is to provide a way to contribute if they're not bringing the products that otherwise are considered affordable. That's why we have the fund, and that's why people are contributing to it. So I do appreciate that contribution. And if we end up doing some affordable housing on this project or another one, I think then they wouldn't have to contribute to the fund. Like, the fund is a replacement for that. And if we think the contribution's too low, then we should raise it. So the contribution to the affordable housing is consistent with what we've seen before. So I'm happy to see that. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Anyone else?
Oh, I forgot about Walden. I love the fact that Walden is getting addressed here. I was on the HOA for Bella Casa for a while, and I've heard about this street for years. When I was on the HOA and on the town council, we were trying to get it addressed through DOT. It's frankly, I don't want to say embarrassing, but it's a pretty bad shaped road that is like in the middle of a developed area that's kind of a wart, and it's heavily used. The residents of Bella Casa use that to go down to Hume Olive. It's used by school buses, drive over it. So that's another big benefit to this project.
If I was going to quantify that road, I think I'd make it the second worst intersection after Tension, Salem, and Apex, personally. And I'm excited about that getting fixed too, because that derailed the daycare, the previous, in part, that development, and this is going to take care of that. So I'm really excited about that
We
change.
didn't want the daycare, yeah.
I will say that, there was a lot of time spent on this here tonight. I would love to see more of this, built into the conditions before we have to talk about this, at the council meeting. I appreciate, that you're trying to address, the age limit by not actually having an age restriction, but providing that 25% first floor masters. I do think that is important. And I think that will contribute to lower amounts of school capacity issues in the future if this continues to be addressed this way. I appreciate honoring the history of this area through the historical markers and different things like that. I think there is a fundamental misunderstanding when we talk about affordable housing. We are talking about the ability of people to afford the housing in the area. So housing affordability, and I appreciate anything that can be done to bring down the price points of some of these houses so that we can attract a more diverse people to this area. I appreciate, like I said, the work that's been done for this.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Ready to vote? All right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move to public hearing number 3. Amanda Bunce, current planning manager. Public hearing and possible motion regarding various amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is a series of 3 amendments. The first 2 are related, and the first one is our proposed amendments to various sections of the UDO to change the approval process for major site plans from Town Council as a quasi-judicial public hearing to TRC, Technical Review Committee, which is staff, to change the decision authority for special use permits from the Town Council to the Board of Adjustment, and while we're at it, fix the position title, changing Development Services Supervisor to Development Services Manager. So this was reviewed with you in a work session a few weeks ago. And so basically every section that's affected has references to moving the powers and duties for review authority for special use permits and major site plans from the Town Council, striking any language related to quasi-judicial public hearings, which those 2 are, and moving those to the Board of Adjustment, which is accustomed to, they only hear quasi-judicial public hearings. So this would allow the Town Council to focus on legislative hearings and the Board of Adjustment to focus on quasi-judicial public hearings. And again, making necessary updates through the rest of the text, adding the responsibility for major site plans to Technical Review Committee, updating our tables showing how notice is required and actions. These changes impact a lot of sections through the ordinance. Again, in the special use permit here, changing references from Town Council to Board of Adjustment as necessary, and including the language as needed in each section. I wanted to get something that was, and as part of this, another proposal is to redefine what is classified as a major site plan. And so the definitions for minor site plan currently is that if it's less than 100,000 square feet of non-residential floor area, less than, currently says less than 20 multifamily units, or doesn't meet any of the other criteria under the current major site plan definition, then it's minor. So we're proposing to change that threshold so that minor site plans are still less than 100,000 square feet of non-residential or less than 300 multifamily units, recognizing that most apartment developments that we may see of this size, or really almost of any size, are going to have to go through the rezoning process first. Town council is going to see that use proposed, the density that's proposed, and make a decision on whether that is appropriate at that location or not during the rezoning process. The site plan process just allows staff to ensure that all of the standards in the zoning ordinance are met and all of the zoning conditions that have been approved as part of a rezoning are adhered to. So we are also proposing to strike some other criteria that have typically triggered a major site plan review, including multiple separate site plan applications within a 3-year period that would cause something to trigger that 100,000 square foot threshold. Site plans proposing 100 or more additional parking spaces to existing development. Site plans proposing to grade more than 25 acres. Buildings that are taller than 4 stories. And site plans proposing the mixing of architectural types, exotic architecture, or the use of non-standard materials. So this is the proposed change. So we simplify it and rely on size of non-residential and number of multifamily units. Major site plans would still require a neighborhood meeting as they do now. So that is not proposed to change. So that would give the applicant the opportunity to present the proposed project to adjacent property owners, hear their concerns, and perhaps make some modifications through their design process. This is procedural, making sure that the site plan process is represented correctly based on the proposed changes. And yes, this is all just changing references to minor and major site plan, ensuring that they're all referenced properly. And I know that's a lot, but I'd like to see if you have any questions on this amendment before we go to the next one.
This took a lot of work.
Ms. Bunce, can you do a quick summary? We make all these changes. How will, besides the neighborhood meeting, how will the minor and major site plans be different in terms of the process?
So minor site plans currently do not have a neighborhood meeting requirement. Basically the distinguishing feature is that major site plans will keep their major site plan requirement.
That's the main,
their neighborhood meeting requirement.
That's the main difference.
That is the main difference,
forward.
yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gant. Anyone else? Okay, ready to move on?
Okay. So related to this is we evaluated our use table, and all the uses that are currently listed as allowed by special use permit, which, as you know, is, if the First Amendment is approved, would now be heard by the Board of Adjustment, which currently only hears variance requests and appeals. So I've highlighted the changes because it can be difficult to see the strike-throughs and any bold and underlines. So there were a few uses where we felt like there could be some modernization to how the uses are allowed, and also considering how they should be allowed and where they should be allowed. So for congregate living facility, which is typically doesn't have to be age restricted, but it's like an assisted living facility. They have a common dining area. We're proposing that be removed from the rural residential, basically the residential zoning districts, except for HDMF. Those are typically more larger in nature, more institutional in nature, or more like an apartment complex, and not akin to the lower density developments that occur in the zoning districts that we're proposing it should be removed from. Similarly, for nursing home, which is more institutional in nature rather than multifamily in nature, we're proposing that use be struck from the residential zoning districts except for high density multifamily, and remain in the office, planned commercial, and our planned development districts.
Any questions?
Question about the congregate living facility. Does that also include, because I know there are assisted living facilities that are, it's like in a home.
So that's a family care home, and that's handled completely separate. Those are actually allowed by right, by state law, up to a certain number of residents, and we are not proposing any changes to family care homes.
Anyone else?
For the townhouse use, this can be a little complicated. So we're proposing to note it as a P/S, permitted or special use permit in the high density single family zoning district. It's currently allowed only with a special use permit, but we feel that townhouses in high density single family would be an appropriate use to be permitted by right. This zoning district allows very narrow single family lots and at densities comparable to many townhome developments. And then it would remain as a special use permit in the small town character overlay district. So that would, to note that there in that column at the end. And then for townhouse detached, which looks like a single family product, the proposal is to allow this as a use by right in the medium density zoning district and add it to the high density single family district similar to the townhouse as a use by right. And it would remain unchanged essentially in the small town character district where it's allowed by right. It would be allowed by right there as well.
Any questions?
And then the final two uses that are affected are public and civic uses. For church or place of worship, we also have, for this use, have a proposed change to the definition and supplemental standard. We are proposing to remove the use as a use by right in the RA, residential agriculture, and rural residential zoning districts, and have it listed as a special use permit only. These are areas that are zoned with land large enough typically for this use, and similarly in the mixed office retail residential district, which is primarily found downtown, so we feel like that deserves some scrutiny, and the use should only be allowed as a special use permit there. And then for daycare facilities, which are more commercial in nature and do not include in-home daycares, we are proposing to remove that as a use in most of the residential zoning districts while leaving it as a special use as currently allowed in the high-density multifamily district. Any questions on those uses?
Was that church one related to recent examples where it may have been less desirable to have it just be permitted as it was? Or is this kind of a long-standing change you guys wanted to make?
I think we went through the list of all the uses, especially those that primarily had were allowed primarily with a special use permit, and just recognizing that the typical land size that a church is going to be looking for is larger, and most of our larger properties are zoned rural residential and residential agriculture. There's another page of uses. My apologies, I thought we were almost done with that part. For recycling collection station, we're proposing to eliminate this out of our residential zoning districts. Found it kind of odd that it was allowed by right there, and it's not something we see very often, but that would remain in our commercial districts and actually change from a special use to a use by right in the Tech Flex zoning district, which is heavy commercial anyway. Beach bingo, which has a long history, and we rarely see this anymore, but we kind of have to have it as a use, proposing to eliminate that from our downtown business district and leave it in the neighborhood business district as currently allowed. And yes, finally, medical or dental laboratory. As you may recall, we amended this use just a few months ago to add it to the downtown business district, but not in storefront locations. And so somehow we overlooked the fact that it's a special use in the neighborhood business zoning district when it's primarily an office use. So we're proposing that be allowed by right rather than go through a quasi-judicial public hearing. And as I mentioned, for the church or place of worship, so currently churches shall not include and this is why a lot of them are indicated with a P/S. Churches shall not include daycare facilities, preschools, schools, or homeless shelters unless approved as a special use permit. And so what this is saying is churches may include those uses and leave the homeless shelter as a special use permit. And in that definition, it's similar to the supplemental standard for that use. And then indicating that prior to the establishment of a daycare facility, preschool, or school, a minor site plan shall be submitted and approved. And this ensures that when that use is added to a place of worship, that it goes through the process and a TIA to the degree necessary is analyzed, whether it's just for queuing or for anything else. So it ensures that we capture that addition if one of those uses is added to an existing place of worship, that it can go through the process and be analyzed by our traffic engineering staff.
Any questions? I have one question related to the church and the shelter. So what if a place of worship was had a situation where they were going to do something temporary, like just with COVID or something, where people may be displaced temporarily or something like that, and they have extra room, and do they have to come before us and do that even if it's a temporary
I think that would
need?
fall under temporary uses in the temporary use section of the ordinance if it was to occur like for a period. So the question was if if a church wanted to offer homeless shelter type facilities for a short duration, a temporary event, like during COVID or a natural disaster or whatever, would they have to go through the special use permit process?
I can't answer that right now. I need to talk to legal. I'm not sure.
Since it's only allowed as a special use this way, whether it can be administrative under a temporary nature is another question. So.
I don't know, only because I think it's got building code implications.
Okay.
Housing people in a non-residential, I don't have.
Got you.
Sorry.
It may be more involved than
then
it might take care of itself.
Than a temporary thing. Okay. Thank you.
And finally, supplemental standards related to townhomes, a couple small tweaks indicating that such use shall require special use permit if located within the small town character overlay district. And similarly for townhouse detached, for both townhouse and townhouse detached. So that's the end of amendment number 2.
Good to go. Okay.
Okay, finally. Something not related to uses, the use table at least. This next section is to amend the minimum parking standards for repair and maintenance generals, typically vehicle related, and automotive paint or body shop. And to add a missing reference in a parking standard and allow the use land clearing and inert debris landfill to utilize gravel parking except for accessible spaces, and to require vehicle storage areas associated with automotive paint or body shop to be screened according to vehicle storage standards. So just to show you what this is now, automotive paint or body shop currently follows Schedule B, which relates to their square footage size here. And what we have found is it does not allow enough parking for the use. And we have looked at existing facilities in Apex and also other uses in Cary and other jurisdictions to see what their parking standard is. And what we have proposed is, since it can vary based on a small shop to a large shop, that it needs to fall under Schedule C in the UDO, which I'll summarize this text, basically leaves it up to the planning director based on similar facilities and a letter from a traffic engineer if necessary to support their proposed parking ratio. We have that for a few uses in the UDO. For repair and maintenance general, which is like your, Firestone location on 55 or any other place where the general auto repairs, it currently as well relies on this, but often does not allow quite enough parking. And so again, we analyzed other jurisdictions. And the reason why it doesn't allow enough is we have maximums. And so even with the maximums and what they're allowed to exceed there, it's not quite enough. So we analyzed it, looked at existing facilities, ran the numbers, and feel confident that 1 per 300 square feet plus 2 per service bay will offer a reasonable amount of parking. And then for parking lot design standards, this is just to show the proposal to allow a land clearing and inert debris landfill to have gravel parking except for their accessible spaces. Typically, these are not visible from a right-of-way and are only used by employees. And then in supplemental standards, this is for the automotive paint or body shop, that their vehicle storage areas be screened from off-site view in accordance with our vehicle storage standards. So that is the end of the UDO amendments for this public hearing.
Some detailed work. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's no more questions, then I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. And we have one person signed up, Laura O'Brien.
I think I might have signed up under the wrong sheet up there. Yeah, and she's intending.
Oh, okay, so you meant to sign up for number 3.
Unfinished business.
Okay, I got you. All right. Okay, there's no one else. So I'm going to close the public hearing and send the matter back to council.
Motion to approve?
I second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you for your work on this.
Absolutely. All right, now we're going to do. Yeah, that's what I thought she was. Well, okay, so thank you, Mr. Gant. I want to go back and look at something because I was wondering when I looked at Ms. O'Brien's name is here under the public hearing. Because the issue that she is concerned about has to do with a UDO amendment, because under unfinished business, it's not a public hearing. So I think I would like to reopen the public hearing and have her speak. And I wanted to ask the attorney if that's something I can do.
Yeah, I think the public hearing for that was closed at the last meeting, but she is the applicant, is my understanding. So
Okay.
you may speak to her in that regard.
So she
Any
can't.
questions?
Okay.
When it comes up. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, I just want to make sure that, okay. All right, so now we're going to go to the next public hearing, number 4, Vance Holloman, Finance Director. Coming up again, public hearing and possible motions to make findings and determinations regarding the need to finance the cost of acquiring, constructing, and equipping a new public safety facility and acquiring, constructing, and equipping a new office building for use by the town's inspection department, selecting a financial institution to provide financing, and authorizing staff to file an application with the local government commission to approve an installment financing agreement for the projects up to $8.7 million. That's a lot. It's on you, Mr. Holloman. You can take this piece by piece and help us out here.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. I have a short presentation I'd like to make before we start the hearing. Again, it is a public hearing concerning installment financing agreement to borrow up to $8.7 million. The key phrase being there, up to. I know in our retreats and various meetings, we've discussed this financing. We've been talking about approximately $8 million. We put this in at 8.7 to allow us a little flexibility depending on the results of bidding. I understand these days contracts and things of that nature are running much higher. We have more flexibility this way. If we had this public hearing for $8 million and we need to borrow $8.1 million, we'd have to start the process all over. Whereas if we have our 8.7, we can borrow that amount or a lesser amount. Just briefly about the projects, and again, I think you're very familiar with these. Public Safety Station 36, estimated cost $6.5 million. Currently estimated we would borrow $6 million of that. $500,000 has already been placed in the capital project fund, appropriated for preliminary work on the project. Of course, rapid growth in the White Oak Basin and Green Level areas. The response time from Public Safety Station 3 would not be sufficient for those residents. We anticipate additional growth in that area. And that is the justification for that project. Second project, Mason Street renovations. With the growth of the town, office space in Town Hall is at a premium. The construction of this project at the site of the old Grocery Boy Junior, kind of behind our community center and near the senior center, that is anticipated to relieve some of the crowding in Town Hall and allow for a bit of a shifting in that area. It would house our inspections department at that location. Currently, $1.5 million of local money has been appropriated within the General Capital Project Fund for that project, and it's anticipated borrowing of $2 to perhaps $2.5 million to also be used for that project. The resolutions you'll be asked to consider following the public hearing make certain findings concerning the need of the town to finance the project. The two projects for an amount up to a maximum of $8.7 million. Making certain findings, determine those to be necessary. Also, consider awarding the financial institution that will be providing the financing. We're recommending Pinnacle Bank based on the recommendations of our financial advisor, Davenport Public Finance. They offered us a very good rate, 1.5%. For a term of 15 years and no prepayment penalty. We had, that was the lowest of the 15-year financings by a considerable amount. We did look at a 20-year financing. We had a rate offered to us that was not bad. But when we looked at it, we would save a little over $100,000 a year for the first 15 years. We'd be paying in excess of $400,000 a year over the remaining 5 years, and in total we'd end up spending, I believe, an additional $650,000. For the minimal amount of savings in those early years, we don't feel it's appropriate to go with the 20-year, but we are happy that we did look at that and did consider that option, and we did have several banks, and again, a very strong rate for the 20-year, but still the rate for the 15-year is so strong that really made that the recommendation. In addition, inform you that the financing agreement will be secured by a deed of trust on Public Safety Station 36. The Mason Street property, the office building being constructed there, will not be pledged as collateral for the financing. And third, the resolution will authorize the staff to file an application with the Local Government Commission for approval of this financing agreement. Some important dates coming up, of course. Today we're having our public hearing, approval of the resolution. September 9th, we will receive the construction bids for Public Safety Station 36. Adoption of a final resolution on September 24th. And then we anticipate approval from the Local Government Commission at its October 5th meeting, and closing of the financing on October 14th. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Hall?
Mr. Hallman, besides the benefit of not having to restart the whole process, can you describe some of the pros and cons of the installment financing versus bonds versus a general obligation bond, or whatever kind of we typically see?
Well, a general obligation bond process takes a bit longer. As you know, we're doing some for streets and sidewalks, and we started that process a while back, and you have to have a unit-wide election, so you are limited in how quickly you can do those. The town has, in the time I've been here, the town has limited its use of installment financing agreements with one exception to public safety. The one exception to that, there was some land we needed to act quickly to buy for Parks and Recreation, and we did do a installment finance, I believe $7 million back in 2016 or 17 to go ahead and get that land when it was available, rather than wait for the referendum to be held. Public safety is a very good process, a very good purpose for an installment financing agreement, because it's very essential to the town, and it is typically the type of project that has strong support in the community. And it is a bit more financing. The financing rates would be a bit higher. It's not as much of a difference today because the rates are so low. so compacted that the spread between the GO and the installment financing is not as great. And for those reasons, the ability to act quickly, the amount involved too, $8.7 million, would be very expensive to have a general obligation bond referendum for that kind of amount. 8 to 8.7 million would make it prohibitive. I think we are following very strong policies here, minimal amounts, essential functions such as public safety. Our ratio, and I believe I talk about this at the retreat very often, we do have a much higher ratio of GO to compared to our installment financing amounts. So we're very strong in that area also. So financing agreements such as this and these amounts for these purposes, they are still part of a strong debt management policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Holloman? Comments? Okay, so hearing none, I will open up the public hearing. No one signed up. I'll close the public hearing. And if there's no more questions or comments to Mr. Holloman, send the matter back to council.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Sounds good. Ready to vote? So all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, motion passes. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're gonna move, we have no old business, but we do have unfinished business. Moving to unfinished business, item number 1 and number 2, because, so first, okay, thank you, Liz. We don't want to annex a property if we're not going to rezone it. And so we're going to hear the possible motion to adopt an ordinance on the question of annexation. Apex Town Council's intent to annex Edwin A. Goodwin Testamentary Trust, the Hackney trustee property containing 2.867 acres located at 2600 Olive Chapel Road, annexation 701 in the town's corporate limits. Also, the possible motion to approve the rezoning application, which we will do first, 20 CZ 14 Hackney PUD Statement of Town Council and Ordinance. The applicant Brandy Vega with his Ravenel seeks to rezone approximately 73.64 acres. Liz.
Yes, good evening. As you remember, this site, we held a public hearing in March, and the item was continued to the April 27th meeting. And at that time, the vote was continued to October 26th meeting. Due to recent developments, Wake County Public School Systems moved forward on a contract to purchase land in Western Apex for an elementary school that would address the overcrowding in the vicinity. Due to these circumstances, the applicant has requested that a vote on the item be moved to an earlier council meeting, and notices were mailed to the neighbors. The planning board held a public hearing on March 8th and did recommend approval with the conditions offered by the applicant. And I'll just go over a few of the key items for this project. They will build a minor collector with a 10-foot side path through the site to Olive Chapel Road. The total number of homes will not exceed 233, and the density does not exceed 3.25 units. A full list of the approved uses are on page 2 of the staff report. They include single-family, accessory apartment, and townhome. The applicant did increase the northern buffer to 200 feet. They did also increase the western buffer to a 20-foot type A buffer. The applicant at the last meeting did revise the solar conditions, and the wording can be found on page 5 of the staff report. And as offered during public forum, the applicant has committed to 10 instead of 5 affordable, and the rest of the wording can be found on page 7 of the staff report. At least 25% of the single-family detached homes will have the master and bath on the first floor. And the neighborhood will be built in phases. The developer will not record plots of more than 50 residential lots in the calendar year 2023, 100 residential lots in calendar year 2024, and the remaining 83 lots in 2025. And the applicant is also here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Liz. All right, so any questions for Liz? We've already closed the public hearing for this item, so it's really up to us to discussion here.
I just have a question for the applicant.
Okay.
What?
You have a question for Liz before she?
During the public forum, we heard about a taking of a driveway or something. Do you know what that's referring to on this map, or is that
I believe that person.
I can give you the address.
Was right here. I believe that's who we heard from. I have not had any direct.
The address is 2438 Olive Chapel Road.
Her name was Elizabeth Perkins, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she lives right there.
Okay.
Beyond that, you heard everything I did.
Okay, thanks.
Those were my questions too, to follow up about. I think I heard maybe a reference to stormwater concerns and the driveway. So I'd like for somebody to address that if they could.
The applicant come up. Mm-hmm.
Hi, Brandy Vega with Israel now, and also here.
Chris Raleigh with Pulte Homes.
The location of the collector road, we did try to work with staff to move that to a different location, so it would not impact the neighbors to actually the east. So this area, staff's recommendation was that they did not want to move that collector road, that it would impact the southern side of that collector road. So they did say we could come forward with a comprehensive transportation plan amendment to try to move that road, but they would not support it. I do not have those reasons for you, other than on the southern side, it would, they believe it would impact more homes. So that's a fixed location. It does comply with a comprehensive transportation plan, and we are aware that that does impact the adjacent property owner because the road has to be lowered. Ed can probably speak to the road lowering better than I can. A site distance study was done here, and the road does need to be lowered for that location.
Folks like to hear more about that?
I would, yes.
Okay.
And
that'd be great.
Whether that's from staff.
And as we're talking about, can you clarify? Are you talking about the arrow pointing up in this site layout? Is
no,
that? It's that. Okay.
This is the collector on the transportation plan, and so there's a site distance issue at this point. So the road, Olive Chapel Road, will need to be lowered.
Okay, it's the lowering of that road. Okay.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ed Tang. I'm an engineer with Withers Ravenel. I think the woman that spoke earlier during the public forum, she made a statement, I think I heard correctly, that we were tying into her driveway or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. We're not tying our site into her driveway. As Brendy mentioned, because of the location of the collector road on the transportation plan, that section of Olive Chapel Road, if you've driven it, there's a peak in that road, in that location. So for the interest of public safety, we have to lower the road some to get proper site distances for people coming in and out. There may be a chance that we would need an easement from her to lower Olive Chapel Road and working with DOT in order to achieve that, but we're not making any modifications to tie into her driveway or take her driveway by any means. So I think that needs to be clarified.
Can you clarify? So you're gonna have to lower the road at the intersection of the major collector,
yeah.
And the part that would be the objectionable would be as you're going north from that. It might have to be. It'll be.
Yes, as we lower the road where the arrow is, we have to kind of taper it back out
Right.
to tie back to existing grade.
Okay. But the amount lower at the northern end is
Correct. We're not lowering it
as much.
We're
Okay.
trying to get back to what's out there today.
Okay.
So we're trying to do this as quick as possible, but also follow all the guidelines of the requirements from DOT, so.
Okay, thanks.
So with regards to the neighbor, is the concern by the neighbor then that there would be a taking for grading on their property to get it to match the road? Is there an alternative that can be done, like a little retaining wall or something?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I thought I heard her say that we were taking part of her driveway, but we're not actually taking part of her driveway. We might be asking for a construction easement in order to make the grade transition work.
I see.
But we're not actually removing her driveway, or I think she's got a U-shaped driveway, so she actually has 2 driveways out there. So the closest one to us is one leg of her U-shaped driveway, because I don't think she backs out. She actually can drive around her house to get out. So we would be working closest to the one closest to our property, probably through some kind of construction easement to tie everything back together as it is. So we're not closing her driveway, we're not taking any part of it.
So in this situation, would her driveway need to be graded down then to match the new level of the road?
Potentially, we'd have to work a little bit of that during the plan review and the design to get it down a little bit lower than where it currently sits.
Presumably you'd pay for that as part of the project.
Yes, that would be part of our requirements to do that, so.
Thank you all for talking about that.
Do you have an estimate of how much lower that intersection is going to have to be?
I'm trying to recall, I think where the arrow is, it may be anywhere between 3 and 5 feet just to get the sight line. So if you're sitting there in a car, you can see over that peak in the road as cars are coming over.
Okay.
So.
Did I hear concerns about stormwater management too? Was the neighbor also talking about that, or did I mishear
So
that?
what I wrote down from the gentleman said there's a water issue related from growth, and the other thing that was mentioned is that townhomes, people staring down on their property.
Is there?
Right now, we don't have a stormwater plan, but we plan to comply with stormwater. I believe that they had some issues, and I can't speak for them, but they had some issues with the Linden subdivision, potentially. Like I said, I can't speak for them, so.
Okay.
Can you describe the general flow of the water from all of Chapel to the north?
Off Chapel was a peak, so yes, everything kind of flows north to the pond, and our stormwater would not be able to drain onto their property because it all kind of flows to the north, so we're not flowing to the east.
Okay.
So I can't speak for where he made the statement of which way the water was coming from.
Well, it just sounds like to me, if this passes, there needs to be some communication there. That's clear to me.
Yes, I would agree with that.
More questions for the applicant?
Can I clarify that? Is it going to be a major site plan?
It's a subdivision.
Subdivision, and does that require a neighborhood meeting?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that would be part of the process then.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That will be part of that opportunity for more conversation. Then please have it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? We're good? Okay, so what we have before us now is the possible motion to approve the rezoning application. And so we would need to do that first, obviously, and then we would do the second one on the question of annexation. So on the possible motion, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, could we do the annexation first? Just keep in mind that you don't want to annex if you're not also going to rezone.
Okay.
Or you could do it all as part of one motion, but we do need the annexation to come before the rezoning.
Gotcha. Okay, so if it's a pleasure to count, let's do it all in one motion. I think that's better. Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Hoey. All right, so is there?
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But just to remind you that there was an amended zoning condition offered during public forum related to affordable housing. So if you want to approve it, that would need to be.
Okay, thank you so much. So what I have down here is that it will be 10 affordable townhome units. That's what I have. Okay, all right. So is there a discussion leading to a motion on the question of annexation and approving the rezoning application? Is there a motion, or do we need further discussion?
I think it's a similar question to earlier. This is a an application that we considered in March, April, and kicked down the road about school capacity concerns. And I think we need to make a pretty public policy decision here as to whether we think we've done enough, whether we're going to do more, and what we're going to do going forward. So I think really that's what that comes down to. I don't recall I remember the presentation we had tonight. It seems like a very good development, and my issues were purely based on the school capacity concerns. Since then, we've gotten a new elementary school, has been purchased and is on the calendar, and that's kind of where we're at.
So I appreciate that, we're having built affordable housing within this, this development. Again, the 25% master down is going to be addressing some of the issues that, with, most people that are having issues with mobility are going to go for that. So I appreciate that condition being added, phasing the units so that, it's built on a slower capacity instead of all at once, all of which I appreciate changes to.
I just want to confirm the 25% master down was, I thought that was the other, is that?
It's this one too.
It was both, it was both, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just like to add, I agree, the school capacity issue is still a concern of mine, but we are making some progress. And I think it needs to be very sustained, continued conversation. But this applicant has added about everything they could add except for a school, and there's no room for a school. So I really appreciate all of the work with the primary bedrooms, 25%, with the, I intentionally asked for more of a commitment to affordable housing, and that was given very recently, so I very much appreciate that, and I think it's a quality project.
I also appreciate addressing the sightline issue we have here with public safety, at the peak there of Olive Chapel Road, so to speak. So thank you for addressing that too.
Yeah, that's great. Olive Chapel Road there's several sections that are problematic from a site perspective. So it's good to see this addressed here. I would say, I guess I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Actually, I'll make a motion to approve the annexation and the rezoning with the added condition of the 10 affordable housing units.
And I'll second that.
Motion, yes. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further further discussion?
Yeah, for discussion, yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, part of this application is a sidewalk gap filling that I would wager is the biggest in town history. It's like 800 feet. That's a substantial amount of sidewalk gap filling, and we hear about that. I care about it a lot, but I think our residents care about that too. And people will be able to walk from this neighborhood to all the way to Town Hall if they want to. So I think
it's a sidewalk gap on the neighbor's property who's concerned about their driveway?
I think it is on that, and I hope that it's not. I hope it could be worked out. I think sidewalks less egregious than a driveway change is, but I hope that's not a problem. But it's part of the condition, so it'll be a funding or a built. I prefer to get built and then work it out together. Of course, is my strong hope. I don't know if that's going to happen necessarily, but it's at least funded through this zoning. And and be able to walk all the way across town on one road, on one side or the other. I think it'll be a first in Apex. I think for the most part, because we have a lot of these gaps still, and this is going to be a big one to be filled.
All right, one other thing, Mayor Pro Tem, before we vote. Although I do feel like we made good progress on the school capacity issue, and I'm comfortable pumping the brakes a little bit, unpumping the brakes a little bit, as we see these things addressed and we get conditions related to capacity concerns like the first floor masters, the mix of products being built. I don't want to give the impression to anyone that by any means feel like the problem's solved. Today we're done. We did it. We stopped for 6 months. We got a new elementary school. It's still going to come up in probably every rezoning, especially the ones that are in Western Apex, south of 64, and west of 540. That seems to be the hot area. So we're going to keep talking about it, and I would encourage staff and anyone applying to think about these conditions that you could offer to help mitigate school capacity concerns in this area as we're moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with that. This is, I think, a case-by-case basis from my viewpoint, because the school capacity issue is a real issue, but I think we are trying to be responsible And I appreciate the applicant working with us on many items to try to, maybe influence capacity in some ways. But that conversation is going to continue with every project, in my opinion, from my vantage point.
Yeah, the comment I have on that is that a lot of the capacity issues, sorry if you were going to go, a lot of the capacity issues are based on developments that preceded at least my time on the council. And I don't know how much of a consideration it was prior to when I joined, but hopefully at least the efforts going forward will, especially if the first thing that's asked is can a school go on there, this one has that road in between that would make it hard with the current schools types they're building. But I think it's, we're doing all we can, not having control of the process of school building to, and perhaps if can address some of the capacity issues that have already been built, established based on precedent in this area. But I'm hopeful that we can, this area, at least the western part of Apex, can be addressed going forward a little better.
But I also just want to thank you, my colleagues, that we have brought this to light. To me, we've really brought this conversation really to light with our community, and I think it will continue to be so. And as I said before, the more we can have facilitation of conversation with our development partners, property owners in the school system, possibly we can make some more progress, because we need to still make progress.
Yeah, and I do think we talk about other things related to transportation, infrastructure, all those things that are hard conversations, and that I feel like I've been part of all the conversations for over the years that I've had. And there are many developments that I did not support over the time that are on some of these roads. But I appreciate that we are able to have thoughtful conversations about these things, and not just up and down, and just and so people know that it's a lot going into these conversations. So school is one thing, but transportation, a lot of things that are out of our control and are from developments that were approved all along, and that some are approved and they come up later on. And so I think we just have to do the best that we can do to help with what we have in front of us, and working with people to make it best for the people most impacted. And I think that's all we can do.
Can I add that too? This major collector, it will extend down to the south as well eventually. And I think Richardson's going to become, maybe it already is a little bit of a problem area. I know that intersection with Richardson and All Chapel's a bad one, but it will become increasingly crowded because it's one of the main north-south ones. And this road, now that's connected all the way to All Chapel and eventually further south, will be a substantial alternative to Richardson and ease that congestion. So maybe we're creating some traffic problems with more people out here, but also this road is going to address some of that as well, and the neighborhoods around it. So I think that's probably, in my opinion, one of the most important parts of this development is that infrastructure of that road going through there.
Thank you, Mr. Gant. Are we ready to vote? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, motion passes. Okay. All right, so we don't have any more, thank you so much. Oh, hold on, did I miss something?
We have one more unfinished business. Just one.
Oh, we should, yeah, oh gosh. Thank you so much. All right, so we have unfinished business. How could I forget? Number 3, Amanda Bunce, current planning manager. Possible motion regarding an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, requested by Tutu School Apex, related to the personal service use in storefront locations downtown. The public hearing was held on July 27th, and the vote continued to August 24, 2021. But in consultation with the attorney, said that after you finish, we will allow the applicant to speak.
Okay, so I will just speak very briefly. Since the public hearing was made, the applicant has agreed to revise language and even additional revisions since you received your staff report. The phrase open to the public as relating to the retail component has been added to ensure that whatever retail component that's offered with the business is open to the general public and not just to students. And so that's been added since your staff report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bunce. All right, Laura O'Brien, would you like to come up?
Good evening, Council, and thank you for the opportunity to stand in front of you again. And I know this has been a very long evening that's demanded a lot of attention, so I will be brief, but again, thank you for hearing out this proposed amendment yet again. Bringing Tutu School to Apex has been part of my vision and business plan since 2014, when I launched the first location in Raleigh and simultaneously began mapping out how we would grow and continue to serve children and families more widely around neighboring communities. The search for a home for Tutu School in Apex began in 2018, and it took 2.5 years to land on a space that would provide the synergy that we've seen necessary and that has been tested at both of our downtown Raleigh and downtown Cary schools. That is the specific space at the High Line, and that was last October. It's been nearly a year since then, and it's been a very difficult one. But I've continued to invest ample time and resources to see the prospect of Tutu School Apex come to be. I really want Tutu School to be a part of this community, and I know it will complement and contribute to this community by, once at full strength, 1, being open 7 days a week, up to 10 hours on certain days, specifically on weekends, but no less than 5 on any day, given how we operate at our other schools, to a total of 40 to 50 operating hours a week, which is consistent and even exceeds some of the other businesses on Salem Street. 2, by bringing consistent and predictable, and needless to say, very joyful activity to downtown throughout the year on a weekly basis. And 3, by operating with an inspired mission to serve children and families in Apex, as well as partner with businesses, the community, and the town in general. I have yet to really speak or hear from anyone that doesn't agree that Tutu School would be a great fit for Apex. It seems to be more a discussion about whether or not the language in the UDO as it stands today is helpful or limiting in supporting this type of vibrant business in downtown Apex. I do understand that a tremendous amount of effort and research went into creating this UDO, and I respect that. I fully honor and appreciate the downtown Apex business community and what each of its business owners have contributed to create here, and it is exactly why I want to bring my business here. I am in no way looking to undo that hard work, but simply evolve the language. My hope is that the updates that we've made to the proposed amendment language would create parameters that would minimize unwanted service businesses while allowing businesses like Tutu School to call downtown Apex home. I believe, and I hope that you can too, that it honors the intent of the UDO in shaping a vital and engaging downtown. I very much appreciate your consideration yet again.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm glad you were here so you can present this evening. So I'm going to send this matter back to council for a possible motion or discussion leading to a motion, unless you have more questions for staff or the applicant that come up during our discussion.
So one of the things that I believe was asked for the last time was an understanding of all the members of the ADBA and where they stood on this. And I believe we received an email addressing that unanimous decision wanting to keep the UDO as it is from the members there. So my understanding too is that some of the members of the ADBA were also discussing options for other places for the school. So I'm going to support the business owners downtown currently and vote to keep this the way it is.
Thank you, Ms. Councilman.
Well, I'll say to my colleagues, I actually attended that meeting that the email is referring to, where the ADBA had a little lengthy discussion about the proposal. We explored, I asked the question, are there any potential alternatives here, some compromise conditions that could be added, maybe limiting the location to north of Saunders or anything of that nature. And ultimately, we couldn't find a compromise that they could support. And as the letter indicates, the vote was taken unanimously to support the current UDO in its current form. And they feel strongly that the storefront businesses, should be retail or restaurant or something of that nature. And I personally have some concerns that this proposal would open the door to what's to say the next person coming in, wouldn't want their own cutout of some other business. It feels very specific, and I'm a little uncomfortable with that. And I think it kind of opens the door to us kind of being viewed as acting arbitrarily if we do a cutout here. I guess what I'm saying is, if we're to approve this, I'd rather approve personal services altogether, as opposed to trying to limit it in this nature, because I think the way we're doing it here seems like if I were a business owner that wanted to bring that, I would say, why not me? Why is that good there and not me in this store? It seems rather arbitrary.
Understand, thank you. Anyone else?
Just to clarify, Mr. Haffey, I think obviously the EDO describes anything that happens in Apex. I don't believe there's any current building that would have this 10% thing, but I would anticipate buildings like where the fire station is now, if we redo that, it would probably fall under this service like that, maybe a 10% type thing again. So I don't believe this is only for this one building. Maybe currently it is, but I anticipate in the future there'll be more buildings like this, hopefully, when we can kind of reinvest in some of the parts of downtown. And so I don't anticipate it being only for this building forever, maybe just right now. I mean, I have aspirations for the CSX building at some point. Maybe that area could be a similar kind of larger building too, and that would be probably another place where a 10% rule like this would be not just tailored to one building.
I guess the question is, what does the 10% rule have to do with the appropriateness of the use in a building? It seems like an arbitrary rule invented to limit it in scope to try to carve out and upset people the least amount as possible. It really isn't. It doesn't speak at all to the appropriateness of the use. It's just a quantity, like the building must be gray. The building, has to be on the east side of the street. Like, there's all sorts of arbitrary things you can come up with that really don't connect to the use. And I think that opens us up to being accused of acting arbitrarily, and for someone else asking for their own carve out and saying, well, now you really got to approve me because you did it here. Like, it's the same thing. And that's kind of what I'm making when I say the criteria to me feels a little too tailored.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would agree with Councilmember Killingsworth and Mahaffey. I'm going to stick with the ADBA recommendations as well, but I really would like this business in Apex, and so I don't know if there's any way our ADBA or Ms. Moraes can facilitate and help the applicant, because it sounds like a wonderful business opportunity that I would like to see in Apex, but I just don't think that's the right place based on the way things are set up and based on what the ADA is asking and saying. And so I'm going to stay consistent with the UDO.
I'm going to make a motion to deny.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second to deny. Ready to vote? All right. So all in favor to deny. Okay, this is the motion to deny this part. So all in favor of denial of this, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. So the motion passes. This has been denied. Okay. Now we don't have any new business items. So our next item, and our last one, is updates from Town Manager Catherine Katie Crosby. And Town Operations.
Good evening, council members. I'll try to go quickly. Just wanted to highlight a couple things and really notes of congratulations to the staff. The first is I want to congratulate Chief Mcgee on celebrating 30 years of service this week. Mm-hmm. And so what an appropriate way to also do that by saying or extending honor to Captain Pearson on the work that he did to help save the family, and really, I think, to show how Apex values our residents. So congratulations to Chief Mcgee on that. I also want to congratulate Tessa Silver on receiving certificates of appreciation through the North Carolina Clerks Association for her work that she did on both the State Certification Committee as well as the Program and Education Committee. Congratulations to the Finance Department on receiving the GFOA Award again this year, which is a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. We've been getting that since 1994. Youth volleyball, baseball, and softball has started this week. So in addition to kids going back to school, they're also out and active. And then just a reminder to folks, one, we want to strongly encourage folks to wear their mask, but then secondly, also encourage folks to get vaccinated. We are seeing our numbers in Wake County continue to increase, and so we want to make sure that our residents and our visitors are safe. And so just want to encourage people to wear their mask and then also to be vaccinated. And those are all my comments for this evening. Thank you.
So much. So any questions before you go? Any comments?
Do we have information on, it's my understanding we have information on COVID testing and vaccination sites on our website as well, is that correct?
I will double check that we have that information up there. We do get regular updates, but I'm not sure if we have it on our website, but I'll double check.
It's a good question. And when I do get some of my updates, and I have sent like graphics and things that are going on, and I've seen in social media, and I'd like to see them more and more on in utility flyers as well. One of them I sent, we did in 6 languages, so that could be really helpful. And it's the last one I sent was around COVID-19 and people being uninsured, and understanding where the federal funds came in to pay for that, and if folks have paid for COVID testing, especially, and they should not have, then they're on that particular thing that tells you where to go to make sure that that doesn't happen. So happy to send that again.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Crosby, any updates on the senior center in terms of, do we have an official opening?
We don't have an official date yet.
And I wanted to add to the conversation about COVID earlier, while we were here earlier this afternoon, actually, the county had a press release saying there'll be a press conference tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with several doctors and nurses from the various area hospital systems to discuss COVID and their capacity. And it says, I'm trying to find exactly what the quote is here.
What time is that?
It's at 10 a.m. It's a virtual news conference, so I think maybe go on the county website, and media probably report. We'll see newspaper articles about it. But
thank you for sharing that.
Representatives Duke Health, UNC, this is the press release, UNC Health, Wake Med, and Wake County will discuss community-wide capacity constraints due to COVID-19, continued efforts to support all patient and community needs, and the steps to alleviate the surge at hospitals before taking questions from the media. So,
Thank you.
Of interest to us.
Mm-hmm. I think you were going to say something.
I was early. I think having the information in as many places as possible and having it as easily as accessible to a lot of people is the key, is the goal. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for the updates and celebrations. It's nice to have that too.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. All right, so we don't have any closed session items, any work sessions, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir.